A young girl zips down a narrow trail through the thick forest. She's no ordinary beauty because she's got real animal ears and a tail. She's freaked out trying to escape some danger that's threatening her life. The guy she's running from is already catching up and laughing at her. She spots that beast real close, and that's when the ground under her feet starts moving. Out of nowhere, a bloodied hand shot up from the ground and grabbed the girl's ankle, making her scream in surprise and fear. More dead hands started crawling out of the earth around her, trapping her with no way to escape. Then a massive monster crashed down behind her, huge enough to crush a car. The beast was happy it finally caught the cat and tried to grab her with its massive claws. She begged the monster to let her go and called for help, but it just kept getting stronger. The monster asked the girl what she'd do if she was set free, since a lot of people had challenged it before but none had survived. The creature showed off its sharp teeth and said it really liked fresh meat. The girl realized the monster actually wanted to eat her and started crying because there was no way out. The monster imagined how tender and delicious the girl's meat would be as he stared at her fragile body. The cat girl screamed for help until someone finally answered, which surprised the monster. A red-haired guy flew straight down from the sky to save the pretty girl from the monster's clutches. The girl and the monster were both shocked by the hero's bravery. As he got closer to his target, he held up his palm and summoned the god of death's spell. Then the monster was suddenly hit by a massive fiery palm. He saw the last moments of his life flash before his eyes before a big explosion rocked the area. She got thrown back and opened her eyes to check what was going on around her. Trees around her were knocked down, and a big palm print was left on the ground with the defeated monster in the middle. The guy walked up to the beauty and asked if she needed his help. He apologized to the girl for being a little late. She couldn't even thank him because she was too emotional to calm down. The girl suddenly flung herself into his hero's arms, sobbing thanks for saving her, and he tried to calm her down because he was now there to protect her. The guy hinted that heroes usually get rewarded for their brave deeds and then grabbed the pretty girl by the chin. They leaned in to kiss each other tenderly, but it was all just a dream. In reality, the guy was alone in his bed, still dreaming about the girl. He grabbed the pillow next to him and started kissing it instead of the girl. Out of nowhere, thunder crashed, pulling our hero out of his sweet dream. He jumped up in bed, scared, and realized it was just his own imagination. He was super mad because the dream was so good and had just gotten to the best part. He remembered what happened in the dream and turned bright red. The main character was really angry at the weather because now he definitely couldn't sleep. Thunder kept booming overhead and lightning kept flashing across the sky. Heavy rain was falling and people under umbrellas were trying to stay dry. Some folks spotted a young guy with a weird face walking through the crowd, the only one without an umbrella. People noticed he had a mask on his face, was walking super slow, and was carrying some black stuff in his hands. Then he bumped into another guy who got super mad and started threatening him. The weirdo kept walking forward, ignoring the call, and carried his box in his hands. Out of nowhere, the weirdo stopped, and something really scared the arrogant guy. Turns out the figure under the hoodie was a real corpse without eyes. Meanwhile, our hero still couldn't sleep because he was playing video games. In this game, you just had to kill other players, but sometimes the guy faced pretty strong opponents. He was slamming every button trying to win because one already made it halfway through the game. The guy lost and got super mad about it, then threw his phone at the bed like it was a tantrum. Just then someone knocked on the door, but our hero didn't want to see anyone, so he yelled that no one was home. That was the same weird dead guy who kept ringing the doorbell even though the guy told him to stop. The unwanted guest was making creepy noises that didn't sound at all like a human voice. The main character finally decides to walk up and open it. He peeks out cautiously and asks who's there. Then he realizes the hallway's completely empty. He starts arguing thinking someone's pulling a prank, but then looks down and spots a box. Right under his feet stands a black box drawing attention with its mysterious presence. Our guy brought the package into his place and started figuring out what it could be since he didn't order anything and there was no address on the box. Eventually, the guy decided to open the box and the surprise inside blew his mind. Inside was a virtual reality helmet. He was super stoked to get such a gift and quickly unboxed the device. He immediately wanted to play something with the VR helmet and thought the sales department must have mixed up the address and sent it to him. Our hero noticed something weird about the gear. It didn't have a power port. There was only one button on the helmet, so the guy figured it was a fake. In the end, he just put the helmet on and tried to see if it worked. A message popped up in front of the main character asking if he wanted to play the game. The helmet worked by voice command, so the guy immediately agreed to play. The helmet just announced the game's about to start right now. Out of nowhere, the hero lifted off the ground and was flying through the air, totally freaked out. Right then, a bright light beam shot down from the sky, aimed straight at his house. The VR helmet hit the floor, and the main character ended up in some weird place. He opened his eyes and was stunned by how things turned out. He didn't know where he was because it didn't feel like a home at all, and he figured he was dead. After checking out the area, our guy spotted a path leading to a mysterious door and decided to head that way. He opened the door and asked if anyone was behind it. Turns out it was a bar where our hero was already waiting, and the blonde beauty gave him a compliment right away. The woman called the the new guy 101 introduced him to the monster kingdom and mentioned she already had a mission for him. She introduced herself as the main character's supervisor who would give him tasks, and her name was Bloom. The guy got super flustered seeing Bloom's beauty and deep neckline, so he didn't care about any tasks anymore. The supervisor started explaining that in every game players get tasks and do them, but the hero couldn't get what they were talking about. Bloom wanted to explain the game rules, but the guy refused to listen. He couldn't believe he was really in the game, so he thought it was just a dream. The overseer smiled and realized she had a way to check if the guy's experience was really just a dream. Our hero happily agreed, so Bloom just gave him a hard slap. He got super mad at the woman and called her a psycho, since the guy's face was swollen from the strong hit. Bloom noted that if it hurt, then he was definitely not dreaming. The main character then realized everything around him was real. He was super excited about the news because he's always dreamed of getting into the game world, and now he was ready to listen to all the rules from the overseer. Bloom explained the main rules were that players had to play until the end if they confirmed their participation and couldn't pass the helmet to someone else. The main character was in a rush and wanted to start his game as soon as possible. The overseer said the game tour in the Monster Kingdom had 4 stages. Each stage had a time limit that matched exactly with real-world time, and the player decided on their own whether to do the tasks. Main character realized he could just skip ahead and move on to the next chapter, so he wanted to jump straight into the game. Bloom liked the player's determination and decided to start the first stage of the game. The supervisor needed to snap her fingers to kick off the game. A first mission popped up on the TV screen above her, telling our hero he had to catch a thief. The guy asked if that was the main goal of his mission. Bloom told him he had to neutralize whoever had bad intentions and ordered the TV to show him the target. The thief was a 27-year-old black car driver named Xiao, who was D-ranked and gave the main character a chance to earn 10,000 yuan. The player was surprised by the weird job of his target. Bloom explained that all the main info was on the screen and added that the thief's rank depended on his bad intentions. Then she told our hero to go back, so he obeyed and was surprised to see something behind him. The guy had to pick his game class from wizard, fighter, archer, mage, and summoner. The main character was shocked because he saw 5 different versions of himself and asked what was going on. Bloom explained it was the 5 starting classes players could choose for themselves. He noted each class had the same stats as the game he'd been playing non-stop. The guy picked wizard without thinking it was his destiny. Bloom took the player's choice, so all the other roles vanished instantly. Next, the attendant asked the player to go to the right spot to get their chosen class. Our hero walked up and felt like a layer of light was surrounding him. Then Bloom told the introduction team, and the guy didn't get what was happening. The light around the main character shattered into particles, so he asked the attendant what was going on, and she explained that the fighter's data was loaded into his brain, so during battle he'd be able to use new skills and moves. Our guy was super excited about his new powers and wanted to jump right into his mission. Bloom pointed at the door with the portal and told him he needed to go through it. He asked where the door led, and his mentor explained he'd end up back in his room. Then the VR device would send a mission start message. The main character got his mission clear and decided to head out, with Bloom giving him a final good luck wish. The guy walked up to the door and got a little nervous before stepping into the portal. The light around the hero's house turned red after he came back. He stepped out of the portal in the wall and went back to the room where a forgotten VR headset lay on the floor. The device beeped and the guy realized there was a message coming in. He put on the headset and a mysterious map with a red dot appeared before his eyes. The system announced the start of the mission and activation of the navigation map, and the hero recognized Bai Lin's voice in it. Turns out the red dot on the map was the target, and the green one was where the guy was. The main character had 60 minutes to reach the thief's location, or the mission was over. He started screaming it was way too short and it was already midnight, but the system just told him to give up. Eventually he changed clothes and was ready to do his job. Then things jumped to Tiana Airport. The airport was buzzing with activity, planes taking off and landing, and people rushing to their flights. A lot of people's attention was on the girl with a killer figure, hiding her face with glasses and a mask. Meanwhile, she checked her phone and saw her taxi was almost at the destination. She walked to the road and waved her hand to stop her car. The car screeched to a stop and the thief who'd been the hero's target popped up from the window. A taxi customer asked the driver to take her to Han Street. Meanwhile, the main character was running through the city's empty night streets, lit only by the moon above. He ran so fast because the map made it look like the thief was close, but in reality, the thief was way farther away. He also noticed his target kept moving, so he shouted in frustration and exhaustion. Meanwhile, the thief and the girl were already driving into the city. The driver tried to talk to his passenger, but she wasn't responding because she'd already fallen asleep after the flight. He realized this was the perfect opportunity and drove his victim into a deserted forest. The girl woke up thinking they'd arrived at her street, looked out the window, and realized she was in a completely unfamiliar place. The ugly-faced thief checked if his victim had woken up. The girl got scared and started asking the driver why they stopped in an unknown place instead of Han Street. The pervert licked his lips and asked the victim what she wanted. He noticed the beauty was wearing revealing clothes, a mini skirt and long legs, which caught his attention. The creep thought the girl was trying to seduce him that way, so he kept thinking about her all the time. He reached out his hand to rip off the girl's mask and glasses to see her cute face. The poor girl tried to cover herself with her hands and screamed as hard as she could, but the pervert still managed to remove everything from her face. The girl finally gets out of the car and starts running away from the pervert, shouting for help. The thief laughs and wants to see how far his victim can run before getting caught. Meanwhile, the main character keeps running non-stop, and the system says it's been 30 minutes since the mission started. He gets worried because now he's not sure if he'll make it in time to finish his mission. The guy thinks about how easy it is for characters in video games to run around the map, but in real life it's way harder. He couldn't figure out why that guy in the black car was moving so fast and couldn't even stand still for a second. Still, our hero kept running and was hoping like hell to find some kind of vehicle. Then he ran around the corner and saw a rental bike and figured the gods were finally helping him out. He got on the bike, rented it quick, and now he was zooming after the thief. The main character was pedaling so hard the pedestrians barely had time to notice him. One guy thought he was crazy because he was speeding and screaming at the top of his lungs. Meanwhile, the poor girl was running for her life under the water, trying to escape the psycho. Eventually, the pervert sped up, so she started panicking and begging him to stop chasing her. The thief loved chasing his victim and was almost on her. On 3, he finally tackled the girl from behind. They both crashed to the ground, and the girl screamed in fear and surprise. Once she realized she couldn't run from the psycho anymore, she begged him to let her go and promised a big payout. The thief got excited about meeting such a hot girl who not only had a killer body, but also money to spare. The pervert didn't care about the girl's money or her body. He wanted both to satisfy his twisted desires. The victim kept screaming for help, but the creep didn't care because he was sure no one would hear them. The driver said this abandoned area was called Feng Shui Treasure, and he'd spent a lot of time searching for it. The girl started threatening him, saying she knew the police chief who was her uncle, so the thief was definitely gonna get locked up. The creep acted scared at first, but then hit his victim hard. He laughed like a total nutjob about the girl thinking she could scare him with that. In the end, the pervert didn't stop his victim's threats and just jumped on her again. He realized the girl wouldn't back down, so he swung for another punch, but just then the main hero showed up, zooming in on the thief on his bike. The thief got a major kick and flew off in the other direction. He rode through the mud with all his might, while the main hero tried to catch his breath after that wild chase after his target. The main hero was happy to finally catch the thief and asked if everything was okay with the lady. The girl, with tears in her eyes, begged the guy to save her from the perp and take her away from here. Meanwhile, the scumbag got up, pulled out a knife, and started threatening the main character. The guy saw through the helmet that it was the same taxi driver he'd been chasing, so he threatened to call the police. The thief didn't back down and swung his weapon at the guy to stop him from calling the cops. The main character managed to stop the attacker's hand at the last second, and the girl got really scared for her hero. At that moment, the guy's helmet started loading data, so the area around him and his opponent started changing. Everything around them started breaking down into particles like in the Matrix. The main hero and the thief dissolved into the air and eventually became one single point. The guy didn't get what happened and started slowly opening his eyes. He saw the same forest landscape around him, but everything was covered in different numbers. The guy realized the scenery he could see was just computer data. He looked up and saw the same symbol in the sky that he'd noticed at the start of his journey in this game. The guy started shouting for someone to explain what the hell this weird place was. Out of nowhere, Bloom popped up from the ground, formed from the area's data, and explained it was a different dimension. The main character demanded a quick explanation of where they were, and she revealed it was a virtual space where the player's subconscious and goals existed with no concept of time. The guy loved the realistic game graphics and asked the observers where his goal was, and the woman pointed right behind the player. He turned around and saw the injured guy behind him. Suddenly, the thief's eyes turned red and black smoke came out of his mouth as he said he wasn't gonna let this chance slip away, especially with the girl involved. The main character wasn't fazed at all because he hated guys like this driver, who only knew how to harass helpless girls. The rivals stood face to face for a few seconds, saying nothing, getting ready for a fight. The guy called the jerk over and asked how to play the game, but his opponent was charging up even more power. The driver started acting weird beard and eventually weird blue hands with black claws started coming out of his mouth. The main guy freaked out because his opponent was turning into something totally different. He remembered Bloom told him the thief was just a regular driver, but noticed the guy didn't ask if the target was a normal person or a monster. The guy saw the monster's body keep growing, and the watcher explained these evil intentions of the taxi driver were coming out. He realized things were serious because the terrifying monster was almost completely coming out of the thief's body. Our guy totally lost it when he saw his enemy face to face. The driver's bad intentions showed up as a girl with big curves that looked weird and gross. Then she screamed, showing off her nasty teeth, and the snakes on her body came to life. The reptile opened its mouth, revealing another monster inside. That's when the main guy realized this rival was way more dangerous than he thought. He wasn't sure if it was just a 3-rank monster, but the caretaker shot down the guy's guess and confirmed it was actually a low-level beast. The main character thought the woman was mocking him and realized he'd have to work hard to beat such a huge opponent. The monster started laughing at the guy for even thinking about backing down. The snake-faced villain charged at the hero, ready to send him to hell. The guy barely dodges the monster's unexpected attack at the last second. In the end, the reptile spits venom into the ground instead of directly at the main character. Then the guy realizes his opponent still has a real dangerous venom. The snake with a human face realizes she needs to be venomous, but that's not her only attack. Suddenly, our hero gets surrounded by the legs of a huge monster woman. He didn't even notice how fast the witch had grown so big. She screamed again and swung for the final blow, leaving the main character shocked and frozen in place. The monster's limb could stretch, making it easy to reach the guy. Meanwhile, the hero struggled to escape the arm and realized he'd been trapped by 2 monsters. He yelled at Bai Lin that it wasn't fair, but she explained the whole system was built on fairness, and the real issue was his body hadn't transformed yet. The main character got distracted by talk about transformation, so the monster hit him right then. He couldn't react in time and got hit with a super strong blow straight to the back. This kicked up around the guy and the monsters laughed, asking if he'd run now. He lay on the ground complaining about how bad that hit hurt, but he got up and was surprised he survived that massive attack. Then Bloom told the main character to check out what was above them. The guy looked up and saw a health bar over his head showing he'd already lost a third of his health. He asked why it wasn't visible before, and the attendant explained it only shows up after health is lost, which is why it wasn't there before. Our hero asked if he'd lose when his health hit 0, and Bloom confirmed that's exactly what happens. Suddenly, a gross snake showed up at his head and pointed out their fight wasn't over yet. The guy didn't react in time, so his opponent bit him and injected the poison, dropping his health to half. The poison finally took its toll, bringing the player's health down to nearly 0. The main character got a major injury and was screaming in agony from the unbearable pain. He checked his health bar and realized there was almost nothing left. Suddenly, the health bar turned purple and the monsters started laughing because the guy's body was completely poisoned, so he was definitely going to die from it. The player begged the overseer to explain how to trigger his body transformation. Bloom explained it was as simple as declaring his intent to fight, and our hero couldn't believe it was that easy. Meanwhile, the monsters were mentally breaking his resolve, hoping he'd give up since even with the transformation he couldn't win. They decided to deliver the final blow together to end the fight for good. The snake was already celebrating as the main character approached his instant death. They watched the dust closely to spot their opponent's dead body. Out of nowhere, a guy who had been talking to Bai Lin stood up from the dust. The monsters were shocked he survived. The overseer stared confidently at her player, and the guy realized he was really lucky. Our hero had truly become a strong fighter and figured out he would have been dead if not for that hit. The snake couldn't believe he dodged the attack, but still thought he couldn't win even after the transformation. She showed the main character his health bar, which was already almost at 0. The guy wasn't scared by the threats and promised to take out his opponents before his health hit rock bottom. He got into a fighting stance and prepared for the final push to end this fight. The miracles didn't believe in our hero's power and started laughing at his stupid bravado. Meanwhile, the guy didn't react to their words and channeled all his strength into his fists. He finally cast the Death Strike spell. The protagonist's hands flared up with flames, and he charged at his opponents. The witch was a little surprised, but the snake didn't care, thinking the guy would just die from the poison. The monster charged with its hands, ready to grab our hero and send him straight to hell. He lunged at the guy, but he took no damage. The monster realized its target had vanished somewhere, and the snake noticed it too. The main character had already made it to the snake, who didn't expect this twist and was ready to deliver a fatal blow. He used the thunder thunderball and started raining lightning-fast punches on his opponents. Bullets completely shredded the ugly snake's body. The witch also got hurt, and our hero kept throwing quick punches without stopping. The final strike hit the snake right in the face and sealed its fate. The monster woman collapsed to her knees and couldn't keep fighting anymore. Once the dust settled, the main character approached the snake's body to check its condition. With its last strength, the monster asked the guy how he figured out this body was the real one. The guy acted like he was thinking hard about how to answer the monster's question. Finally, he took the hint seriously and replied that his instincts had told him to. The serpent couldn't say anything more because he was already drowning in his own black blood. Miracles started hissing and breaking apart into particles, slowly disappearing from the game space. The main character marched toward the overseer with victory, despite his low health. Bloom expected that result from the player, but still worried during the fight because the guy's health was almost gone. She realized one punch would have been enough to end the guy's fight, but the results were still pretty good for a first time. The hero asked if he could go back to the real world, but his helper wasn't done with him yet. She snapped her fingers and explained she wanted to reward the player for finishing the mission. A glowing chest appeared right in front of them. The main character was super happy about the chest full of silver, which he could use to buy weapons for a specific fighter in the mission waiting room, but there was more to those perks than that. Then he asked about other ways to use silver, and Bloom said you could do whatever the player wanted. The guy figured out she was hinting that silver could be used not just for game stuff, but also in the real world. Bloom snapped her fingers again, and the silver chest vanished instantly. She explained the treasures didn't disappear, but were just moved to the main character's social media account. The guy could check his phone after returning from the game world and see everything. Bloom told the main character that the Monster Kingdom game isn't ordinary because anything's possible inside it, and urged him not to doubt the game. The main character got flustered and asked her to take his words seriously. She explained she didn't merge with the player, but wanted him to pay attention to important things. Eventually, the guy was glad he could go back to real life, and Bloom said he could use the device if he had more questions about the game. Right then, the hero noticed his body was slowly disappearing. After a while, the guy completely disappeared into the game world. In the real world, the deep night remained, and the battle between the hero and the thief froze. The thief tried to break free from the guy's grip and stab him with a knife, while the girl was shocked and worried about her savior. The thief suddenly shook and started heavy breathing, dropping the knife, and the hero couldn't figure out what was happening. He broke down as if realizing it was his end, and started apologizing to the guy. A pathetic pervert grabbed our hero's hand and begged for forgiveness. He screamed nonstop, dropped to his knees, and pleaded for mercy. The thief admitted he couldn't find a girlfriend, so he used pretty girls for fun and claimed he couldn't control his lower body, so he shouldn't have kids. He was really upset about his messed up actions, but our hero noticed something different. The guy realized the monster representing the man's bad intentions was defeated, so the thief's kindness finally woke up. The guy kept begging on his knees for punishment, but our hero couldn't judge, so he asked the girl who almost became a victim of abuse. He crawled to her feet and begged her to punish him, while the girl tried to calm him down. The girl didn't want to do anything with him, so the guy decided to punish himself instead. The main hero liked that he was now doing good things, while the girl forgave the guy because he figured it out on his own. Then the guy decided to run and turn himself in to the police station. He promised to change and become the best person, and the girl watched him go, thinking everything ended up so well. Just then the main character walked up and offered his jacket so she wouldn't freeze. She came back to thank him and refuse his help, but then suddenly got flustered. Turns out she saw the real beauty of our hero without the VR helmet. After that, the pretty girl finally accepted the jacket from the guy, and he asked if he should walk her out of the forest. She promised everything would be fine and her friend would take her away, so our hero could relax. The guy hopped on his bike and zipped off, waving goodbye to the girl still nervously clutching her hoodie. She kept waving at the guy for a while, but then remembered something important. At that moment, the girl realized she forgot to ask his name. The main character was already far away, riding home happy after completing the mission. Finally, the guy made it home and checked his balance on his phone. He was shocked when he saw the amount in his personal wallet. The main character actually got 10,000 yuan for completing the mission. He was super excited because now he could buy all kinds of comics and games and figured he'd found the real goldmine. The young guy called the game a gift from God and now wanted to completely clear out the Monster Kingdom. He realized it was 3 a.m. and decided to crash since he had to be at class the next morning. Morning hits and the action moves to the Chiachin University campus, where the first class has already ended. Students are leaving the building, and among them are a group of totally different friends chatting about the awesome idol known as 101 Chudo. Kai Li from the art class had never heard of her, so he immediately asked about her figure. His classmate, the chubby guy named De Peng, pointed out that he never pays attention to figure, only to good looks. Kia Ji noticed his friends were talking about a girl and realized he was definitely cuter than her. Turns out they were his friends, so he rode up on his bike and greeted them. The guys saw he stopped but the guy explained he accidentally set his alarm for the wrong time and just slept through it. Kyoji thought Yibo had been gaming all night, but Yibo pointed out he'd never play online games again. He smirked and said he found something way more fun instead. Our hero asked his friends to go to a place with no extra people so he could tell them everything. He led his buddies to a table surrounded by tall trees and set down his VR headset in front of them. The guys started checking out the gadget with interest but thought it was weird that Yibo called them into the woods for a regular toy. The main character explained it wasn't just regular glasses but a whole gaming console, so Kylie decided to test it out. Yudok put on the console but eventually saw no game interface and couldn't figure out what was going on. Kia thought his glasses were broken, but the hero couldn't believe it because he'd used them just that night. Kylie took off his helmet and asked the boy to check the glasses himself. Nothing worked, so he couldn't figure out how it had happened. The friends were upset that Yibo hadn't lived up to their expectations and told him to back up his words next time. The main character finally cracked and said the VR device was made by the gods, but his friends weren't surprised at all. The guys rushed back and left Yibo behind, but he kept trying to prove he was telling the truth. Yibo didn't want to give up, so he chased his friends trying to convince them. Then he realized his friends actually stopped because they listened to him. In reality, his friends were drawn to something else ahead, but Kyaji didn't react to it. The main character caught up and asked them what happened. Kia realized he was with the guys and asked Yibo to look ahead where he could spot a couple sitting at the next table. Sitting behind him was an incredible beauty with an average. Our hero recognized her as Zoya Meiki and couldn't believe he'd run into her here. Kylie was seriously checking out the hot body of that beauty. The Peng noticed she had a really pretty face before, and Yibo joined his friends and stared at Zoya Meiki. Out of nowhere, the guys noticed the stunning beauty was sitting with a total stranger, a big guy. They were super annoyed because this couple looked like real lovebirds. The main guy asked his friends if they knew the big guy, but only Kaya had any idea who he was. He explained the guy's name was Wan En, and he was the vice president of the student council. The guys were shocked by the info and shouted, so the couple noticed them, and the guys got flustered from the attention on the beauty. The girl smiled and asked her classmates to be quiet because they were trying to study with the chubby guy. Her classmates got flustered again because Zoe Maki's smile looked like an angel's. They immediately apologized to the beauty and promised not to be loud again, but Van Anju didn't like the extra attention on the girl. The guys left and said goodbye without taking their eyes off the beauty. But Kyaji was really upset about his friend's shameless behavior. Turns out the main character had been in love with her for 4 years and wanted to sit next to her and chat. Yibo's been crushing on her since high school and wanted to go to the same uni since he was 3, so he started studying harder to make it happen. Now the guy still sees his crush as often as he did in high school and keeps getting happy about her, still hoping they'll become friends someday. His friends pulled him aside because he was just standing there daydreaming about his love life. Yibo sprinted after them and begged them to wait a sec. The main guy asked where they were going, and his friends said they were heading to the cafeteria for a snack. The action shifts to the university dorm at midnight. Turns out all the friends were roommates, each doing their own thing. Kylie was crushing his body with workouts while De Peng was gaming on his PC. Kia Jae found the main character missing from the room, so he called the hero, only to realize the hero was already gone. The guys explained that Yibo had gone to throw out the trash with a broken VR console in tow. The guy was already outside by the trash bins, ready to toss his broken gadget away. The main character was really upset because he thought the VR headset was a real treasure, but it turned out to be just regular trash. He tried to get himself in the mood to throw out the console, but it started making noises in the end. Yibo was super excited, looked around, put on his glasses, and teleported to the mission room to check out Bloom. A message came asking to join the game. The hero responded and instantly vanished from the real world. The guy teleports back to the waiting room door again. He flies in to check on the console, but Bai Ling's gone. Someone taps his shoulder from behind, but it's not his watcher. A hot chick shows up in front of Yibo, totally out of nowhere. She asks if he played Monster Kingdom, but he's clueless. The girl introduced herself as Yuan Yuan, the host of Panda's game show, and invited our hero to watch her live stream. Yibo got a little flustered, but asked if the girl was also a player. Yuan Yuan explained that the Monster Kingdom started just this morning, so she had number 102 while our hero had 101. They laughed about how it was real fate they met up, but then the girl spotted Bai Ling, the overseer. The main character asked when the woman had arrived, and she explained she'd been here the whole time. Bai Ling pointed out that the players got so caught up in the conversation, they didn't even notice her. Yibo really wanted to ask about the console, but the super supervisor already knew what he was going to ask and told him it only works when the player is alone. Another person could only use the console if the current owner suddenly died or gave it to someone else. Yuan noticed that only a fool would give the helmet to someone else, and our hero explained he just wanted to brag to his friends. Then the players said their console made a weird noise, and Bei Ling explained it was a system message. They were surprised, and the overseer noted that it was for announcing a new mission. Yuan was super excited about the news, since the first task looked way too easy for her. The main character asked the girl about her first experience, and she explained she had to fight a wild boar. Eventually, the players were eager for details about their new mission, but the overseer pointed out they needed to make a choice first. The woman explained they had to decide before the mission was announced whether to spend money on weapons. Yuan and Yibo were surprised by how interesting the opportunity was. The girls started asking in detail how buying weapons would affect the mission level. Bai Ling said nothing would change because all punitive missions are generated completely randomly. Our hero realized she was so stressed out because she's a streamer. Yibo agreed right away to buy the weapons, and the girl mentally noted he was super excited about it. Yuan refused to do it, which surprised the overseer so much she didn't expect that choice. The beauty explained she was in this game for the money, so she didn't want to part with her earnings just yet. Bai Ling said the player's choice had been accepted, and she activated the channel. A new portal instantly appeared in the wall. The overseer ordered the main character to step into the teleport. Yibo didn't get it, so Bai Ling explained that the guy would be part of the team with weapons and pick his own weapon. The guy was super excited, but Yuan thought all the guys were kinda dumb and acted like single-cell organisms. He ran off to check out the weapon options, but the guard stopped him. She warned he could only take one position that the prize money would cover, but the guy already knew that. Yibo got ready and stepped through the portal piece by piece. He stepped out with a weapon in hand and was super surprised by what he saw. The main character was shocked by the insane amount of weapons in that wallet. He walked up to the weapon stand and started picking out something for himself. Yibo loved the variety here and wanted to find something really strong for himself. He started with the 5,000 yuan weapon, but eventually ended up looking at even more expensive options. The guy starts panicking because he doesn't have enough cash for the weapon he wants. He really wanted to grab all the cool gear, since he used to think 10,000 would be enough. In the end, Yibo gives in and picks a realistic weapon for himself. He picks 4 spots under 10,000 yuan that he can afford with his budget. In the end, our hero goes for the most expensive set and splashes out all 100%. He grabbed the weapon and it suddenly vanished while the girls in the waiting room sat silently. Bai Lin asked why Yuan was staring at her, and Yuan explained that the woman was really beautiful and looked super realistic for a virtual character. The streamer wished she could have that magical look and be the happiest person in the world, but Bai Lin noticed that once people get what they want, they start wanting even more. The main character panicked and ran out of the portal calling for the warden. Yibo said the bot sleeve vanished instantly, and Bai Lin explained it would reappear right during the fight. The narrator starts by explaining the main character's mission. His target was a 40-year-old homemaker named Lu Ai. The mission was level S, and the reward was 150,000. The guy realized this time he was up against a woman, and Yuan was shocked by how big the reward was. The woman explained that with each level, the difficulty goes up, and the reward increases tenfold. If the lucky player has an S-level mission, the reward jumps to at least 1 billion. The players were stunned by the amounts, and Bai Lin handed Yuan her mission. The girl's target was a 20-year-old student named Wangen, who also had a C rank and a 200,000 yen reward. Yuan expected a big payout, but our hero noticed the guy looked oddly familiar. He realized it was the chubby guy he'd seen with his love interest, so he got real worried about the girl. Yuan saw the guy's reaction and thought he knew Wangen from her mission, and the main character wanted to swap missions. The girl refused because the reward for Yibo's mission was way less than she wanted. The overseer realized there was no point in arguing since the system couldn't change anything, but the guy couldn't just sit there watching the bad guy next to him. Bai Lin kept insisting the game rules couldn't be changed, and that our hero's friends were unlikely to get in trouble. The woman pointed out the guy's thoughts were too impulsive and irrational, so he should focus on his own mission right now. Yuan decided to cheer up Yibo by promising to take care of Wang's fat guy so he'd have no chance to do anything bad. The main character decided to trust his girl and told her he had full faith in her. Bai Lin noted all the missions were issued and said goodbye to her charges until the next meeting. The players were pumped for their missions and waved goodbye to the overseer. When the main character returned to the real world, he noticed the device was making noises, signaling the start of a mission. The guy wanted to check Yuan's social media to keep an eye on the fat guy, but eventually realized he was overthinking the whole situation. Yibo looked at his map and realized the woman was close by. He figured she was near the university and sprinted in that direction. The story shifts to the housewife's home, where a young couple left their kid for supervision. They wanted to go chill and watch a movie, and Lu AI understood and let the woman stay. The woman held the baby and saw she also loved him, so she'd take care of him. As soon as the parents closed the door, her forced smile vanished and she called the kid a pig. She checked the clock and figured she could nap until 11 p.m. when the kid's parents came back. The woman sat on the couch watching a show while the boy slept restlessly nearby. Eventually, he screamed and cried, which didn't sit well with Lu AI, so she started yelling at the kid. The housewife endured for a while but finally snapped and started scolding the kid, who didn't even understand what was going on. The kid calmed down for a second, but then started crying even harder. The housewife got so mad she decided to show her real anger. She covered the kid's mouth with her hand to silence his loud screams. Meanwhile, the kid's dad got a call from work, so they couldn't make it to the movie. The woman realized she needed to go home and started thinking about how to get her kid there. Meanwhile, the housewife totally lost it and started drowning the poor kid. When the kid wasn't in the water, he was screaming in fear and out of breath. Liu this E realized this method wasn't working on the kid, so she wanted to try a different approach, but his mom was already getting into a taxi. The housewife found a thin needle and planned to secretly poke the poor kid's butt. She pulled down the kid's pants and was about to carry out her terrifying punishment on the scared little boy. The woman messed up first, and after a few seconds of silence, the boy finally screamed in unexpected pain. Lu AI started hitting him harder and yelling at the guy, but just then his shocked mom showed up at the door. The scared mom started asking what was going on, and Lu AI froze at the sudden surprise visit. The sickly housewife tried to explain to the angry woman, but there was no point. She just stood there with the hurt and scared kid. The mom promised to call the cops to arrest Lu AI and pushed her out of anger. She ran to her precious son, started apologizing and calming him down, but then Lu Ce grabbed her by the hair. The housewife rejected the woman and promised she'd make her suffer too. The mother was terrified for her son and tried to grab the kid. Lu E threatened to poke out the baby's eyes if the mother tried to get any closer. That really scared the woman, so she begged Lu E not to touch her child. Lu Ce demanded 200,000 for the baby and made the woman write a note saying she'd snapped at the nanny for no reason. In the end, the mother was willing to do anything for her baby, so she sat down to write the note as required. The woman showed her work and handed the note to Lu Ai to check. Then the mother grabbed the thief's wrist, since she didn't have that much money to pay for the baby. Lu Ai started threatening to drop the baby on the floor if the mother didn't let her go right then. Finally, the thief grabbed her mom and started choking her while letting go of the kid, who flew off into the... The woman asked what Lu Ai wanted, and she replied she didn't keep her promise. The nanny started choking the woman because she didn't want to end up in police custody. She kept screaming while her mom was almost out of breath, but then the main hero finally showed up. Lu Ai couldn't figure out where he came from while Yibo tried to pull the thief away from her victim. The main character's world starts glitching again as data loads and everything around him begins to warp. A snake emblem appears overhead and the whole scene transforms into a game-like environment. Liu AI now has black eyes and tells Yibo that her client made a big mistake thinking the boy was being bullied, since the woman was just teaching him discipline. The main character calls the woman hopeless, which only makes her angrier and her dark side starts breaking through more. She screams and her inner monster finally breaks free from her soul. Then the guy realized Lu AI was gonna turn into a monster just like her previous target. When the dust settled, the hero faced off against a transformed woman who promised to kill him. Yibo thought the monster would be huge, but his opponent had just a tiny doll in her hands. Lu AI asked the monster how to kill their enemy, and the doll said it wanted to split the guy's body into 5 pieces. The main character saw the nanny was really a witch, didn't wait around, and started transforming too. In seconds, Yibo was fully geared up and ready for another fight with the monster. He noticed his bought combat gloves weren't on his hands, but decided to ignore it and charge in first. Lu this E began calling out to Yibo and luring him into attacking first. The main character couldn't tell if his opponent was really that confident, but eventually decided to go for the first strike. Right then, the woman yanked the string on the doll's neck and screamed super loud. Yibo was surprised and couldn't react to his opponent's weird move. Our hero stayed calm and kept pushing forward with his attack. The guy noticed the sound wave was too strong, so he started feeling dizzy. Eventually, it distracted the main character, letting Lu E land a heavy kick. It hurt a lot, so Yibo started coughing up blood, leaving only half his health left. The guy was already getting hit by his opponent's giant fist while he was down on the ground. Yibo finally dodged the deadly attack thanks to his quick reflexes, which made the monster even more determined to take him down. The main character was catching his breath and realized the monster's giant fist was actually coming out from under its skirt. The doll figured out the hero had noticed the monster's weakness, so she told Lu Yi they could switch to the final form, but the guy overheard everything and was shocked his opponent could still transform. Right then, more giant green hands started coming out from under the monster's skirt. The monster got all sorts of weapons, and the main character realized it was the same final form. Lu Ai noticed the guy was looking at them with the doll in a totally different way, and now he was really scared. Yibo realized he had no advantage left, so he decided to change his strategy and just go around his enemy to strike. The monster was waiting for this, so it immediately swung all the weapons in its huge hands. Lu Ai tried to kill our hero with the scissors, but he managed to jump back just in time. The next attack came with a taser, but the guy kept dodging it like a pro. When Yibo landed, the monster figured it was the perfect time to go all out. Lu Ai swung one hand super fast and hit the main character hard, cracking the ground around them. Eventually, the guy dodged that attack and jumped on his opponent's back while she was distracted by her target disappearing. The monster was stunned by the twist, but the main character was already charging up a big strike. Yibo throws his fear punch and starts raining down fast, relentless blows. Our hero doesn't back down and keeps up the assault on the disgusting monster. Through the haze, the monster's grin shows it's unharmed and already tied the puppet to its own body. The girl in Lu Ai's arms screams and blasts the guy with a sound wave, knocking him out of his own luck. Yibo starts feeling his mind going blank and his body refusing to obey. He landed and looked at his opponent, realizing his previous deadly attack barely took any health from the monster. Lu Ai noticed the hero's strike only grazed her. While Yibo lay on the ground, the monster swung one arm to finally end this brutal fight. Our hero couldn't move, so the hammer hit his unprotected body, making him almost choke on his own blood. His hunger for health hit critical, but Lu Ai didn't want the guy to die so fast since she still wanted to play with him. Yibo was trying to catch his breath and already figured he couldn't do a thing against such power. He suddenly remembered he had new combat gloves that could boost his punch, but the problem was he didn't know how to switch them on. Lu Ai decided to end the game and said goodbye to the guy, but he wasn't giving up and tried to move his body. Finally, he managed to wiggle his fingertips, but the monsters were already unstoppable. The monster swung a punch so powerful it was almost impossible to survive, but somehow our hero managed to block it. Yibo managed to block the Tessa's attack and save his life. Meanwhile, the weapon's blades started cracking from the clash with the main character. In the end, the Tessa snapped in half and the barely alive guy was happy he'd escaped death. Now the main character was happy and realized he just needed to focus in his head for the transformation and gear. That really pissed off the monster, so it started screaming that Yibo just got lucky. Lucy didn't believe in the main character's power, so she loaded all her gear onto him to drain his last bit of health. The guy didn't wait around and started smashing his opponent's weapons right away. Thanks to his new gear, Yibo was able to easily destroy all of Lucy's weapons. Our hero told the monster to prepare for death, but he wasn't giving up so easily since he had a doll with him. In the end, the doll screamed again and unleashed a powerful sound wave toward the guy. The main guy kept pushing forward, but the monster was sure he'd lose control again. But things didn't go how Lucy expected, and the guy kept attacking without stopping. Another wave of powerful hits rained down on the monster from the main guy. This time, the opponent didn't see it coming, so every strike landed hard and knocked the beast back. Yibo finally landed the killing blow that brought the monster down for good. Lu Ai figured out why the puppet attack didn't work on the guy, and he pulled out pebbles from his ears to explain they were what saved him from the sound wave's negative effect. The dark side's plan is now clear, and it's starting to fall apart piece by piece. After that, our hero found a treasure chest with a reward and noticed it looked more fancy than the previous one. The guy realized it was because the mission level had gone up, and he saw he'd probably need the new gear to beat this monster. Suddenly, Yibo realized the reward for the fat guy was 50k more, so he should be stronger than Lu Ai, and Yuan just decided not to buy any gear and went straight for the rival. Main character got a bad feeling right away and decided to rush back to the real world to find their familiar face. Meanwhile, Lu Ai finally stopped choking the barely alive woman and let her go. Yibo realized everything was going according to plan when he saw the thief kneel down before the victim. Lu Dai started apologizing and talking about her guilt because her dark side was gone and she finally saw her mistakes. The victim couldn't figure out what was happening to the woman who just wanted to kill her, so they asked the main character why the thief changed so fast. The kid's loud cry cut the conversation short, so the mom grabbed her son and tried to calm him down. Lu Taiji kept begging for punishment, still kneeling, but the woman didn't even look at her and left it all to the police. The thief agreed but said people like her should rot in jail, but Yibo interrupted the conversation. The guy said the woman was too kind to Lu Taiji, so he suggested doing one more thing before the police arrived. In the end, they made the thief stab herself in the butt with a needle, just like she did to the helpless kid. The woman with the kid in her arms stared in fear at this weird scene. Yibo was about to leave since he'd done all he could, but the rescued woman didn't want to just let the guy go because she wanted to thank him. The main character figured he just helped out and was happy enough that mom and kid were safe. He stepped outside and checked his phone time, realizing Yuan should have found her target, the fat guy. Yibo thought the fat guy might be at school, so he sprinted to help Yuan. The girl had already faced her target and wasn't scared at all, because she'd already gone through a lot to get to him. Yuan said guys like the fat guy should die for the good of all women. He started his transformation and figured his rival could finally say goodbye to life. The story jumps to the dorm for guys at the art school. The main character's friends watched in awe as their favorite idol beauties performed. The chubby guy was super happy when his favorite, Suzayo, won the competition. Other guys noticed she had a good look and could really sing and dance. The main fan bragged he'd already bought all her cases and predicted her win, so now he can resell the merch for way more. Just then the nervous main guy burst into the room, desperate to find his friend Kaiji. The friends saw Yibo throwing out trash for an hour, and Kaiji asked why the guy was looking for him. Our guy asked his friend if he knew where Wangan lived, and the friend confirmed he'd been there a few times already. He begged for the address to the fat guy's house right away. Meanwhile, Yuan was locked in a brutal fight with her target. Everything around them was soaked in blood, and her weapon was already broken. Her clothes were completely torn, and she was barely standing on her own. Wangan's dark side was seriously strong and didn't give a damn about girls. Yuan's health was already at less than half, and she didn't know what to do because the monster's strength was way too much for her to handle. The monster wasn't about to just kill the girl, it wanted to mess with her first, so it launched more coins at her. The main character ran as hard as he could to the dormitory of the economic school to find Wangan. The guy was about to bust down the door, but there was only the fat guy's neighbor in the room who didn't get what was going on. Yibo demanded to know where Wangan was without any explanation, so the neighbor lost all interest in talking about it. Our hero got really mad and grabbed the guy by the shirt, demanding to know where the fat guy was because one life was hanging by a thread and this info was super urgent. The guy said the fat guy left an hour ago with the cute girl, and that's when Yibo finally got it. The guy tried to call Wangan, but he wasn't answering. The main hero started panicking since there was no clue where the dangerous fat guy was, so he slapped himself to calm down. Yibo was trying to stay cool because Mei Kai was in danger and he was just freaking out. Finally, he gathered his thoughts and ran to save the girls, but the guy figured our hero had a mental breakdown. The guy sprinted full speed to the dorm for the economic school's girls. He knew he'd never get in now since he didn't know any of the girls except Mei Chi and even didn't know her number. With little time left, Yibo decided to use the simplest trick and took a deep breath. He screamed as hard as he could and tried to call out Jo Mei Chi, scaring all the girls around him. The girl didn't say a word, but the main character kept shouting across the dormitory. Then Yibo got a call from the girl who introduced herself as Mei Kai's girlfriend and told him to just call her. The problem was the main character didn't have Mei Kai's number, so he asked her girlfriend for it. The girl was happy to help and the main character was super relieved. Yibo was freaking out, hoping Mei Kai was safe and could answer the phone, while her friend tried to calm him down. The main character's nerves are totally fried because he knows the girl's in real danger right now. Out of nowhere, Mei Kai's familiar voice calls them over, and she steps out of the car completely safe. Yibao's face goes from relieved to flustered when he sees his crush, who's thankfully not with the guy. Just then, a hot guy pulls the girl out of the car and asks her to meet up again this week at a French bistro. Yibao spots the stranger right away, and Mei Kai asks what's going on. Sayu asked her friend what the guy was, and her friend explained they were high school graduates together. The girl started getting worried too, so she asked why Meiki wasn't answering her call. Sayu noticed the call was from a stranger and wanted to show her roommate, but our hero was already gone. She was super confused by the sudden disappearance, and Meiki told her not to take it too seriously and called her friend to go to the room. Yibo was really nervous because he didn't want to meet his crush in such a way. He finally calmed down because he knew Meichi was safe, but then remembered Yuan was alone against the big guy. Our hero wondered what was happening to the girl, while she was right in the middle of a huge explosion. The monster laughed at the poor guy, who was coughing blood and barely had any clothes left. Yuan couldn't fight back anymore and realized her power was way weaker than the monster's, so she didn't expect to win this time. Meanwhile, the monster got bored with teasing the helpless girl and decided to finish her off. Yuan lay pinned to the floor, too paralyzed to move and dodge the endless coins flying toward her. A massive explosion blew up dust from the tallest buildings around, making the monster laugh like he just crushed his opponent. The action switches to real life, where the girl begs Wangan to stop. She pleads with the guy to let go of Yuan, who he's choking and excited about, and finally he listens to his friend but won't let her go without a promise to stay quiet. Wangan demands Yuan's naked photos for blackmail, but she acts like she doesn't hear him and starts screaming uncontrollably. The familiar fat guy got scared because something was definitely wrong with the girl, and Yuan started screaming that she felt like something was eating her body from the inside. She kept screaming, her teeth just started falling out of her mouth, and Wang tried to calm her down. The fat guy threatened the girl with death if she didn't shut up, but when he saw her face, he got scared right away. Yuan's beauty was completely gone now, and she looked like a real corpse without eyes and with a shriveled body. The fat guy fell down after closely examining the real corpse, and his friend was shocked by the twist in the plot. Meanwhile, Bai Ling was in the waiting room cleaning the numbered player bottles. Just then, a bottle with Yuan's number fell off the shelf, and the attendant noticed it was expected. The bottle with number 102 landed perfectly on the bar counter and filled up with bright blue liquid. Bai Ling picked up the bottle and realized the collection now had another player's soul. Now Yuan's become a dead person carrying the black box with the VR console. Meanwhile, the action shifts to the 5-star Shangri-La Hotel. There, Eda Zioyu, who just won an idol show, is in her room with her assistant and asks her for a favor. The assistant was ready to do anything for the girl, but when she found out Eda Zioyu wanted to cancel her trip tomorrow, she got super mad. But their fight was interrupted by a knock on the door. She was really mad about that, while Eda Zioyu just stared at the door in silence, wide-eyed. The girl tried to calm her assistant down and decided to open the door herself for the unexpected guest. Finally, she looked down and saw the same black box wrapped in duct tape. Now the story goes back to the main character, who was already at university and walking out with his friends during a break. The friends were chatting excitedly about the good weather and their plans, but Yibo had zero mood. Our hero was thinking that 2 days had passed and Wang was still missing, and his neighbor knew nothing about the disappearance of the fat guy. He also noticed his console wasn't responding at all and was nervous because he didn't know what happened to Yuan while friends were calling him, but Yibo wasn't paying any attention. Finally, our hero spotted his friends and got super scared because of it. Right then, a fancy car pulled up and caught the whole university's attention. The big guy took a closer look and realized it was a real Lamborghini. The guy with long platinum hair popped out and greeted the group right away. Looks like it was an old friend, since he immediately recognized the young guy named Len Yan and was really surprised to see him show up. Len Yan said he transferred to this school and from now on they'd be classmates. Kylie was super happy about the news because now he could train with his friend like old times. The guy noted that a lot of time had passed since their last meeting, but the guy remembered everything and already wanted to check out Kylie's skills. It seems Kia ZH liked Len Yan and asked his friend to introduce them to this cool new guy. Kylie realized he'd gotten so excited talking to his old buddy that he forgot to introduce his friends to Len Yan. He told them they'd trained together at martial arts schools, so they were like brothers, and plus Lan Yan was not just good looking but super rich because his dad was Lan Feng. The guys were shocked when they heard about this guy's rich background. Lan Feng was the richest man with a fortune of 12 trillion yuan and owned 4 of the 9 biggest companies in Jianshan. After the intro, Lan Yan felt embarrassed because he still didn't know everyone's names, so they started introducing themselves. Mei Mei Chi and her friend Yue were walking and talking about going to the movies when they spotted a crowd around a Lamborghini. Girl meets an incredibly attractive guy by the car and instantly senses something pretty unusual about him. Meanwhile, Yue spots the main character and tells her friend that he's been searching for Mei Chi for several days. The girl stares at Yibo for a long time but finally tells her friend she doesn't recognize the guy. Mei Chi notices there are a lot of people at the university who knew her from high school, but her eyes are locked on the handsome guy Lion Yan. Meanwhile, the guy says goodbye to his friends because he needs to take care of personal business. Kieji got upset over saying goodbye to the cutie, while Kylie hoped they'd spend more time with their old friend now. Lan Yan got in his fancy car and drove off, but the guys were still buzzing from meeting such a cool guy. Kylie pulled the friends out of their daydreams and suggested heading to the library, which they'd planned from the start. The main character kept walking behind, lost in thought, so the guys kept pushing him to catch up. Suddenly, Yibo noticed his student ID was missing from his backpack, and Kieji pointed out you can't get into the library without it. Kylie told the main character to look harder, but their conversation got interrupted by a girl calling herself Yibo. She was Edu Zioyu, who had just gotten her virtual reality glasses. The guy couldn't figure out she was a stranger, and his friends were watching their chat closely. Meanwhile, Edu Zioyu pulled out a student ID and asked if the hero had been looking for that exact thing. The guy immediately recognized his own ID and asked how she found it, but she said he'd given it to her himself. Yibo had more questions, so he figured figured it was some weird prank. This Xiao didn't explain anything and took a step closer to the main character, making him blush. The comrades were surprised by how close their friend was getting and even thought she was about to kiss Yibo. This Xiao whispered to our hero's ear that she was the same helpless girl he saved from the pervert in the forest. Then the guy realized he really just didn't recognize her because of the glasses. Finally, Xiao took off her sunglasses and introduced herself to the main character. Yibo asked again about her student ID, and the girl noticed he looked pretty cute. Xiao explained that the hero had given her his jacket that night to keep her warm, and the student ID was in the pocket, which helped her find her savior. The guy remembered he really had put the ID in that jacket, and now he and Xiao were laughing it up while friends couldn't believe Yibo was talking to a girl, and Depeng started suspecting, so he stayed quiet. The fat guy noticed the girl's figure and profile looked way too familiar, so he wanted to get closer and check her out without the sunglasses. Xiao offered our hero her number so they could hang out sometime. While Yibo was adding the girl to his social media, he noticed Wang appearing on the horizon, who had been missing for a few days. The main character got so angry he forgot about the hot girl next to him the second he saw his enemy. The guy explained he had urgent business, and Xiao was mad he was ditching his savior, who had come all this way for him. The group was confused by the hero's weird behavior, but he was already sprinting to stunned Wangan. Yibo was super mad and screaming that he'd been hunting that ugly fat guy for ages. The fat guy figured out the main hero was after Yuan, so he immediately took off running. Yibo reacted fast and chased after his target, but the fat guy wasn't about to stop. Wangan asked why the hero was chasing him, and the hero snapped back that the fat guy should know because he was the one who started running. The guy hit the fat guy and he finally went down, so now Yibo started questioning him about seeing the purple-haired girl 2 days ago, but the guy pretended not to know what he was talking about. Yibo finally snapped and socked the fat guy in the nose, forcing him to spill the beans about Yuan. Wangan said he met the same purple-haired girl at the park that night, and the guy ran because she really spooked him. He admitted she was actually a zombie, and the main character couldn't believe his ears. Yibo was about to beat the fat guy senseless until he told the truth, so Wangan begged for mercy. He started throwing punches, making the fat guy scream across the whole park. Security guards showed up fast after hearing the commotion and demanded they let go of Wangan. The fat guy told the university staff he was the vice president, and Yibo attacked him for no reason. The main character was about to be taken to the security room, but kept shouting at the men that Wangan needed to be punished. Another staff member asked if the fat guy needed medical help, while the hero couldn't calm down over the injustice. Wangan mentally noted that the situation with the zombie girl and the crazy guy was definitely heading nowhere good. Finally, the guy left the guard room in the late evening, so he was super hungry and headed to the cafeteria. Right then, his main character's console beeped, pulling him away from his plan. The action moves to the restroom, where a couple's got it going on in one of the stalls. The door wasn't closed, so Yibo interrupted their moment, making the girl scream and our guy surprised and apologizing to the pair. The guy bolted out of the stall, trying to zip up, while the girl ran out and covered her face from embarrassment. Yibo decided not to wait around and went into the stall, closing the door behind him to make sure no one interrupted him. He put on the game console and moved into the waiting room, where he immediately started talking to Bai Ling about Yuan's sudden disappearance. The supervisor finally explained that the girl had unfortunately failed her mission. The main character asked if Yuan really became a zombie, and someone else confirmed it was true. Out of nowhere, Lan Yang showed up behind Yibo, someone he'd just met. Our hero was shocked to find out the second-gen super-rich guy is also a Monster Kingdom player. Bai Ling congratulated the guy and called him player number 99, so Yibo realized Lan Yan joined the game before him. Lan Yan immediately recognized the main character, and both of them admitted they didn't expect to run into each other. Yibo asked what the hell was going on, and the guy explained that after losing, players turn into zombies because the game isn't an endless money machine. The main character was blown away by the Monster Kingdom's gadgets. Len Yan told the guy to ask Bai Ling if he didn't believe, and the woman confirmed every word about Yuan's fate. Yibo was furious they didn't tell him from the start, but the attendant just smiled, which totally flipped the guy's lid. He wanted to beat the woman to death, so he charged for the punch, but Bai Ling didn't budge an inch because she had a protective barrier up. The twist shocked the guys because they didn't expect that level of protection. The main character couldn't figure out if the barrier was there all along or not. Bai Ling explained that the game system has a rule forbidding players from harming game characters and telling them to enjoy the game instead. The main character got mad at the idea of just enjoying the game because Yuan died because she wasn't told about the consequences of losing. Now the guy wanted to leave the game because it was just a trap for all players with an insane risk of of dying. Bei Ling pointed out that if he left too, he'd turn into a zombie and die too. She reminded him that she told him from the start about the rule explaining what happens if you quit halfway through the game. The woman made it clear that everything was way different from what the main character thought, since she could answer any player's questions that came up. She said players' lives and deaths were totally in their own hands, and the game characters couldn't do a thing about it. Once they got the black box, their fate was already sealed. The woman explained it was a real death sentence, since the console didn't even integrate with the person, but was instead tailored to fit the player's personality. It all came down to the system deciding the player would definitely open the box and join the monster kingdom. Yibo couldn't believe the system somehow knew his character, so Lin Yan decided to ask the overseer about it. The guy asked Bai Ling who created the monster kingdom, and she said, speaking human language, it was God. That didn't explain anything to the guys, but Bai Ling added they had to figure out who God was themselves. She explained players could meet the creator of the monster kingdom after finishing the game. Bai Ling asked if the main character still wanted to leave the game now. Yibo knew he had a good chance of dying, but if he left the game now, he'd die right away, and the woman demanded an immediate answer. Out of nowhere, our hero leaned forward and slammed his head into the bar counter, surprising his friend and the overseer. The guy finally answered that he'd keep playing and go all the way to the end to meet the creator reject and teach him a lesson. Bai Ling laughed at the player's courage, while Lin Yan noted that our hero was pretty interesting, even if he wasn't very smart. The main character immediately wanted a new mission to get back at Yuan Yuan, but the overseer told the boy to wait. Bei Ling explained a new player numbered 103 was about to enter, and just then the door to the waiting room opened up. She welcomed the new guy, and the main character already recognized the girl and was shocked. Yibo couldn't figure out how Xiao Yu could suddenly appear at the monster kingdom. The girl said their fates were tied together. The guy figured she probably just got the console, but she corrected him and said she'd had it for 2 days and was already here for the second time. The main character cross-referenced the facts and realized this happened the night he had the babysitting mission, when Yuan Yuan died. Xiao Yu decided to ask how many of the guys played Monster Kingdoms, but their conversation got cut short by the overseer. The woman asked the players if they wanted to stock up on new weapons before the mission started. The guys agreed right away, and Xiao Yu went with it because she was following her friend Yibo's lead. Bai Ling snapped her fingers, and the teleporters became part of the players' weapons. Yibo told Xiao Yu to buy the most expensive weapon so they could easily kill their opponent. The girl noticed the hero was starting to care about her, which made him feel ashamed, and he rushed into the portal. The story jumps to the dorm room where Wang An and his friend were, and the vice president showed up looking for them. The friend opened the door and was surprised to see the guest show up so unexpectedly. Standing behind the door was Han Guan from the administration department, who was the guy's longtime crush, so he let the girl in right away. The girl comes to tell Wang, and she's agreed to his proposal, so the fat guy tells her to go downstairs and wait for him. The companion walks Han Guan, who has no face at all, and stares at her lovingly as she walks away. Wang talks to De Zi and says they'll be back around 10 o'clock, and his friend asks why the girl was looking for the fat guy. He explains Han Guan is going to study in Britain and asked him to drive her to the campus. The story shifts to the waiting room where the players have already returned after buying new weapons. Bei Ling noted the players bought the right gear and are now moving on to the next step, which is the mission based on their player number sequence. Lan Yan got the first mission since he had number 99, so the attendant just snapped her fingers. Lan Yan's target was a 38-year-old office worker named Dutchigo with the difficulty level B and a reward of 4 million. Yibo couldn't believe it was the same, while Xiao Yu noticed she'd get that kind of money from ads. Lan Yan pointed out that levels D and C usually hide regular crimes like robbery, blackmail, kidnapping, and other similar offenses. The guy figured out the level V was full of killers and thieves who committed really serious crimes, meaning they were real demons. Bai Ling confirmed his guess and explained the targets above level V were way more dangerous, so the fight would be intense. He realized he'd have to get up close and personal to enter the virtual world. The supervisor explained that otherwise players would have to fight the enemy and his squad in real life. Bai Ling moved on to the main character's mission. Yo Bai's target turned out to be a high school student named Wei Jiashina, who also had level B and a 3 million reward. Lin Yan warned our hero to be careful with such a high-level enemy, and the girl was surprised it was just a school kid. The guy was disappointed because he expected to face Wang Gan, the fat guy, but got a schoolboy who looked like an innocent kid. But Xiao Yu felt uneasy looking at his photo because the guy looked like a real pervert, even though he was 2 years younger than her. The main character realized the girl was older than him, so he was surprised, but she thought he looked down on her for that. Yobai explained that Xiaoyu actually didn't look her age, and she blushed, realizing the guy really knew how to flatter her. Meanwhile, Bai Ling moved on to the final mission for player number 103. Our hero was really upset because it was him who wanted to take out this trash. He told his new teammates that Wang and killed the previous player number 102, even though he was a proper student and vice president of his school. Yibo wanted to take out the fat guy to get revenge for Yuan, but now asked his girlfriend to be careful around this guy. Xiaoyu thanked our hero for the warning and promised to take care of this jerk. Bai Ling announced the mission distribution was done and wished everyone good luck. Lin Yan said goodbye to the supervisor while our hero asked the girl to take his phone and turn on WeChat GPS so he could find her and help with the fat guy after his mission. Xiaoyu laughed off the guy's concern, but Lin Yan cut in on their conversation. He suggested meeting up at the university cafe after all missions were done because he had something important to tell the team. Lin Yan explained he wanted to talk about their future, but now wasn't the right time to discuss it. He pushed to move out fast since it was already late, but Bai Ling kept watching her teammates closely. The overseer thought these 3 players were perfect for a team, so she needed to find 2 more. Before leaving, the main character asked Xiaoyu and Lin Yan to make sure they finished their missions. Yibo's words gave the players a boost, so they were ready to take on their tasks bravely. Meanwhile, the city's weather was creepy, with bright lightning cracking the sky over the skyscrapers. Lin Yan kicked his way back to reality, ending up in his own car. He checked the map and realized his target was way out of reach, so he jumped in the car and tore off in the right direction. Xiaoyu found herself back in her own house, but she couldn't stop thinking about the main character. Yibo was the perfect guy for her, so she decided to end the game just for their future together. She started her journey by beating the fat guy, then immediately checked the map. The girl barely managed to hide so she could avoid paparazzi on the street and get the mission done for Yibo as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the main character was sprinting like hell to catch up with his target, who was a few blocks ahead. Weather forecast said rain was coming soon, but the guy figured the mission was way more important. Sure enough, the city got hit with a heavy downpour not long after. Now the action shifts to Jiancheng High School, where the main character's target was located. The kid's tied to his desk with handcuffs and napping in the classroom. Someone's been yelling at him nonstop to stay awake. His parents and the teacher are all fed up with his laziness, since they're working hard to make it happen. The woman points out he's failed the year twice now and asks if he wants to do it a 3rd time, so the guy apologizes and promises not to sleep through school again. Dad says his son's been letting the family down since childhood, so if he doesn't get into a good school this year, his life's basically over. His mom starts belittling him and telling him he needs to follow in his dad's footsteps or else he'll end up as a regular office worker and never find a girlfriend. Then a girl calls him out, surprising him with her sudden appearance. She was a pretty popular streamer named Zaya Omo, someone he'd been a fan of for a long time. She was upset he didn't watch her stream, and he explained he couldn't afford it now. Xiaomo thought she'd never see him again on her streams, but he promised to boost his grades to get money from his family. She told Jongson to take his studies seriously, and the guy actually started doing his assignments, finally finishing everything after some time. He handed in his paper for the teacher to check, but she refused to accept it and told him to look at the sheet again carefully. He slumped down and realized all his answers had completely vanished. He tried to prove his family and teachers he'd just finished his last exam, but no one wanted to believe him. He wanted to talk to his dad, but the man thought his son was lying straight to his face. The kid couldn't keep up with all the test papers he was copying and tossing on the floor. His hands just couldn't handle the stress anymore. Eventually, he snapped and started hating every single problem and everyone making him do it. Now the guy was so furious he wished his parents dead for making him do stuff he didn't like. He froze in place, breathing heavily while staring blankly at one spot. In the end, it turned out to be just a dream about his deepest feelings. He kept reading his manga and fell asleep without a flinch, even though the whole table was covered in blood after he killed the guy he despised for years. He coldly stabbed his own father straight in the chest with a knife and didn't get why he kept chasing his son even in his dreams. He screamed that his dad had been annoying him since birth and wasn't letting him go even after death. He kicked his dad's corpse with anger and said one knife stab was too easy a way to die. Suddenly, he looked at the door beside him and remembered his mom. The woman was still alive but tied to a chair, screaming that her kid was a real monster. She was crying because she knew she'd be next after her already already dead husband. The guy started explaining he could have killed her from the start, but needed the bank card pin. Turns out he just wanted to donate to his favorite streamer, so the mom realized he was totally hopeless. The guy got mad because his mom was insulting him. She was crying because her son had really hurt her, even though she'd spent her whole life raising him and pouring resources into him. The guy snapped at his mom, telling her to shut up because he was tired of hearing it was all for his own good. She yelled that the parents had gone through way more struggles raising the kid. The guy was getting more and more frustrated with his mom's nagging, which just made him even more angry. He said the parents were total egos and didn't think about their kid at all. Turns out the guy got into Jiancheng University's animation department, which was his dream, but his parents thought it wasn't a good career move. In the end, they forced him to stay another year to become a lawyer and make good money, but it totally broke his son. He thought only Kam Mo gave him any warmth or care and was the closest person to him. She realized she was a terrible mom if her own son hated her so much. She wanted to explain to the guy that he didn't understand his parents, but he didn't want to listen to his mom. The guy starts manipulating his mom with emotions and demands she bring home all the money. If she doesn't bring the cash, he promises she'll end up just like his dad. In the end, the mom refuses to listen to her son and asks to be killed because her kid's completely different now and the man's dead in the next room, so she's done living. Right before stabbing her with the knife, he says he'd never be his mom's son again if there's life after death. He starts screaming and charges at the woman, but something distracts him. Turns out the main guy made it to their apartment and busted down the door. Mom and son were shocked when some stranger crashed into their room. Yibo caught his breath, finally reaching his goal, and the guy asked what the hero wanted. He told the guy to drop his weapon, but the guy wasn't listening and was already planning to kill another person. Then the mom screamed and begged the hero to call the police, since her son had already killed his own dad. Main hero charged at the thief because he was threatening the woman with a knife. The guy was so upset he didn't wait around and just slashed through the air with his weapon. He ended up pulling off Yibo anyway, but our hero blocked the attack with his hands and got a deep wound. That totally blew the psycho's top, so he wasn't done yet and his mom begged our hero to run far away. The guy kept attacking Yibo, but he easily dodged the strikes and eventually trapped the opponent. Our hero finally made physical contact with his target, so the game environment started loading. The guys started fading away and getting transported to the other world where the fight would begin. The thief's eyes turned red, but it didn't scare the main character, so he grinned and congratulated his opponent in his own world. It looks like the guy wasn't scared either, because he started laughing maniacally. He realized this was also his world, and he launched countless chains from his mouth. The main character didn't have time to react to the attack, so the chains started slamming into the wall and limiting his movement. In the end, he managed to avoid hurting himself and stared in shock at his opponent. Yibo couldn't figure out what kind of monster could shoot chains. Meanwhile, he said this was just the beginning and stretched his mouth so wide his skin started cracking. The chains started ringing loudly, the guy's eyes bulged, and his skin was tearing apart from the inside. The guy starts breaking apart and the main character figures the rival's about to go off the rail. He finally gets torn to pieces and under his body there's a terrifying monster. Yibo is shocked and trying to dodge chunks of flesh and blood while the chains finally let him go. The hero realizes that's exactly what the senior student's dark intentions look like, while the skull-headed monster notices Yibo's about to die in a gruesome way. The monster promises it's gonna slice the enemy's body into pieces right here in this room. Yibo didn't even flinch because he wasn't a rookie anymore, so he jumped right into the transformation to get back at his opponent. Yibo wanted to teach that high schooler a lesson and test out his new 150,000 yuan combat gloves. The monster didn't give him a chance, so it grabbed Yibo with a chain and yanked him in. He lifted Yibo into the air and slammed him against the wall with ease. The guy's body got crushed like a toy, so he coughed up blood and collapsed. The main character was being held upside down, so he begged to be set back on the ground. The monster asked Yibo if he knew about the ancient punishment called lynching. He planned to cut his victim into thousands of tiny pieces, so she'd feel pain and suffer for a long time. The creature intended to make our hero feel total hopelessness and tore out a page from his book. The skull laughed and ordered the paper to tear itself into shreds. He explained the pieces were as hard as real steel, so the main character immediately tensed up. The monster planned to slice Yibo's flesh into bones using them, but our hero refused to just give up and demanded a fair fight. He ignored Yibo's pleas and, noticing it wouldn't touch vital organs, started cutting the helpless guy's body. The main character eventually started screaming in agony because no part of his body was left untouched. The monster needed more screams, so it tore another page from its book. The monster tore up the paper and threw the pieces at Yibo, who was desperately trying to threaten his opponent. The main character started screaming even louder and tried to cover his face with his hands, while the monster laughed cruelly at his suffering. He gathered his strength and managed to activate the additional power of his battle gloves. The monster was surprised by this twist, since now his paper was just burning in the gloves' flames. In the end, Yibo saved himself from a terrible death and shocked his opponent. Kid manages to pull himself up and rips the chain holding him upside down. Monster freezes up and doesn't know what to say while the main character smirks, thinking he's really lucky. Yibo notices his gloves match the flames, so the opponent's paper no longer works on him. Monster tries hard not to show he's panicking, but mentally knows things are falling apart. Meanwhile, our hero charges up for a devastating blow to his target. Finally, the monster trapped Yibo and grabbed him with its chain. But our hero wasn't about to just give up, so he jumped back and tried attacking his opponent again. He managed to melt the chain around his wrist and attacked the monster without any trouble. The monster wasn't phased since Yibo only burned a few of the endless chains. But the main character didn't stop since he finally decided to burn his opponent down. The guy switched up his strategy and started using the fiery punches. He burned through the chains easily, and the monster didn't expect such aggressive attacks after those injuries, so it started panicking from the opponent's battle gauntlets. The main hero declared this was the final blow for the monster and landed the last strikes. The monster's body was now all covered in holes, so it couldn't fight anymore. Finally, the hero landed the killing blow, and the monster screamed in pain and defeat. Yibo's opponent figured the whole fight was ruined because of the guy's gloves, which totally flipped the battle's outcome. The monster exploded into particles, and where it stood was a treasure chest with a reward for our hero. Now the main character wasn't happy about the big reward, since he knew the real cost of his own life. He thought about how the fire mitts just saved the fight and wiped out the paper skull easily. Yibo looked at the reward and wondered if luck would be on his side in the next fights. He took down the guy in real life, but the woman was way more worried about the stranger's condition than her own son. Yibo said everything was fine, and the guy promised he'd never hurt his mom again. The mom wasn't sure her son was safe since he still had a knife in his hand, but the guy dropped it on the floor right then. The guy collapsed to his knees, shaking badly, and the woman had no idea what was happening to her kid. He started crying and apologizing for all the dumb stuff he'd done. He's been wallowing in guilt ever since and can't look his mom in the eye now, but he's ready to give up his own life to make it up to her. Yibo explained that the woman's son is now crushed by grief and really regrets what he did, because otherwise he wouldn't have wanted to pay for it with his life. In the end, the mom handed down her verdict and couldn't forgive her kid at all. The main character can't believe the woman did that, since she could have pushed her son right over the edge into suicide. She didn't care about the guy's apology anymore, because now she saw him as a real demon after the hate and hurt he'd poured into her. The guy finally admits he's a real devil who doesn't deserve forgiveness because he cold-bloodedly killed his own dad. In the end, he raises his weapon and swings to finally tell himself to stop and end his suffering. Now his mom begs him to stop, and our hero quickly reacts by kicking the suicide's knife out of his hand. The young guy doesn't want to mess up his plans, so he immediately reaches for the weapon. Yibo couldn't hold back and hits the guy to bring him back to reality. The guy couldn't figure out why the main character just wouldn't let him die in peace. Yibo pointed out that the kid couldn't pay for his mistakes with just dying, since suicide doesn't solve any problems and is basically self-deception for weaklings. He also turned to the mom because she just pushed her own kid off a cliff with her words, which definitely isn't maternal love, so the woman should just let the kid start fresh. Our hero started to cry because he never had experience living with parents since his mom was already dead. In the end, the woman stayed silent for a few seconds after her savior finished his touching speech about parent-child relationships. She didn't agree with the main character's words because every family goes through tough times. Her mom was sure she raised her kid in good conditions since she never hit or punished him, and both parents met his material needs. The parents just wanted the best future for their son, so they demanded good education and admission to a top university. The young guy was already fully on his mom's side, so he promised to always listen and follow her orders. Yibo shouted at him to shut up because the conversation with the woman wasn't over yet. The main character said his mom was wrong too because she prioritized material support over moral upbringing, ignored his choice of partner, forced her own desires on him, and that led to this tragedy. He thought parents often mess up by trying to protect their kids from trouble, but that's way too naive. Yibo summed it all up by saying kids only learn real life and gain experience through a series of failures and mistakes, since that's just how humans are. He decided to ask the woman if she remembered herself as a kid. The guy reminded her that parents always demanded things, and that's when the woman finally realized all her mistakes. Finally, the son approached his mom, put his hand on her knees, apologized one last time for his terrible actions, and and thanked her for bringing him into this world with his dad. He begged to be her son even though there had been serious arguments before, but he was about to give up and turn himself in to the police. In the end, the mom agreed to start fresh and forgive her son. Hugging his mom, the guy thanked her for her kindness and broke down in tears because all the emotions were finally catching up to him. The Ibo couldn't help but cry watching the mother and son reconnect, something he had desperately missed. Our hero finally stepped out onto the street after wrapping up his mission and noticed the rain was almost over. He grabbed his phone and immediately tried to video chat with Xiaoyu. She didn't answer at first, which made the guy start to get a little nervous. A few seconds later, she showed up on his phone screen and greeted him nicely. The guy immediately asked where Xiaoyu was and if she'd already figured out what to do about the fat guy. She said she hadn't met her target yet, but was already near the house where the guy was. Xiaoyu also noted that this house was close to the main character's university. He both figured out where the place could be, so he asked the girl to send him the location via WeChat. She promised to send the location after finishing the mission, but the hero wanted to show up and take down the fat guy together. Xiaoyu realized the mission deadline was up, so she couldn't wait for Yibo and wanted to handle it herself. She assured the hero she wasn't competing with Wang Gen, but Yibo still told the girl to be careful and promised to rush over soon. The girl said goodbye to the hero, who wished her luck and asked her to take care of Wang Gen. As they said goodbye, she fake kissed the main character, making him super flustered. Yibo realized the girl had kissed him for the first time, even if it was through the screen. But if it had been his favorite Makey, it would have been way better. His daydreams were cut short by arriving police cars trying to arrest the guy. Main character stared at the window where his mom and son stood, hoping the guy would get a break since he'd surrendered willingly and his family could start fresh. He wished them luck and rushed off to see his friend Xiaoyu. Meanwhile, the girl stood outside the house thinking about how to sneak in without getting caught. Then she remembered she had something in her car that could help with this plan. Meanwhile, Wang Gen forced his acquaintance to do things she didn't want to do, but the big guy didn't listen to her. Turns out the girl was asking him for the cash he owed her for the job he gave her. Ugly fat guy was snapping pics of girls half naked for cash, but his friend totally didn't like it and was super embarrassed. Wang Gen was smirking as he watched the girl unclasp her skirt. She was too shy to show her body, so she covered up with her hands, but the guy didn't like that and told her to stop. Wang Gen said he was doing charity, not business, so he'd give the money after she handed him the pics of the company paying him. He made sure the company promised clients privacy and definitely wouldn't leak the girl's video to the public. The girl was still nervous, but the guy kept going and said it was all totally legal and no scam. In the end, she decided to trust Wang Gen and fully exposed her upper body. The fat guy got super excited and started taking tons of photos of the girl on his phone. He said they needed more photos from behind, but their photo session got interrupted by a sudden doorbell ring. Wang Gen headed straight down to the ground floor to check out who the unexpected guest was visiting the house for. He was shocked to see a female courier at the door, even though he hadn't sent or received anything using that address. Xiaoyu was glad she'd forgotten her clothes from the last fight in her car and was trying to act totally normal so her target wouldn't suspect anything. She yelled and asked if anyone was home to get the order, pretending the package was super heavy so she needed help. Wang Gen figured his friend Long, the former house owner, might have ordered something, so he decided to open the door. Xiaoyu heard the lock click and realized the fat guy had fallen for her trap. Wang Gen came out to apologize for the wait and asked who the order was for. The girl didn't answer his questions and grabbed her target by the wrist, leaving the guy confused. Xiaoyu was happy she'd caught the fat guy, but the console was already loading the game world. They ended up in another environment and were standing apart from each other. Wang Gen's dark side had already taken over, so he stood there smiling with black eyes and heavy breathing. The fat guy laughed and called Xiaoyu another dead end, saying all women are cheap and stupid. The girl looked at her opponent with disgust, hearing those disgusting words, and now finally understood why Yibo hated him so much. Wang Gen laughed again and wanted Xiaoyu to show him her real power, not just talk. The fat guy immediately transformed, but his body just tore apart into two parts, leaving only a sphere behind. The girl was scared at first, but then she spotted a bright sphere. She realized the sphere was made entirely of gold, but it suddenly started changing shape. Xiaoyu was surprised when a huge monster burst out of the precious sphere. The gold-plated Hulk grinned and asked if her new look had scared her. The girl was really annoyed he kept looking down on her, and noticed no one was scared by his goofy look. Xiaoyu tossed her cap to the floor and declared that Wang Gen would never laugh again because she was about to show off her powers. The monster got even more excited, while our heroine started her transformation. She screamed, and dust rose around her until a small explosion finally happened. When the fat guy saw Xiaoyu's final final form, he thought she was from the wizard clan, but she corrected him that it wasn't true. The toy, already ready to fight, emphasized that she was actually from the enchantment mage class. She pulled out her main battle tool, the cards, and showed them to her opponent. Each card houses a magical creature that helps the caster in battle and has a specific agreement with them. Xiaoyu was sure her pets would kill her opponent dead, so she called in her first helper right away. The monster immediately sensed the strong magical energy coming from the bright glowing card that was making magical sounds. He even got a little panicky, noticing a magical circle had suddenly appeared in the sky above them. Xiaoyu looked at her powers with pride, while the fat guy got more nervous and lost confidence. A bright light shot down from the magic circle onto the ground, and in the dust you could already see the cute guy she loved. Turns out it was just a small fiery fox named Xiaodi. Xiaoyu forgot everything around her because she loved her cute helper so much and ran to hug her little pet. The monster got really annoyed that she acted like he wasn't there and didn't even flinch at his distrust. The girl was really ticked off because her cute crush was getting bullied, and the monster couldn't hold back anymore. Finally, the fat guy couldn't wait anymore and shot coins at our heroine. Xiaoyu didn't budge an inch because she was sure her magic helper had her back. The monster was already happy calling her a failed spellcaster, but then he noticed something in the smoke and dust that made him shut up quick. When the dust settled, the fat guy realized the magic shield was right in the center of the explosion, protecting his opponent. Turns out Xiaoyu could create a barrier around herself, so the attack didn't even touch her or the monster. Once the girl was sure the threat was gone, she dissolved her magic barrier. The monster couldn't figure out how the spellcaster survived, since his attack wasn't too weak to begin with. Meanwhile, the girl realized this hit knocked her defense down a third, making her feel the difference between a C-ranked and D-ranked opponent. She got it, joking around with the coin fat guy for sure wasn't gonna work. Xiaod jumps off his mistress's hand and lands right in front of the monster. The beast suddenly starts growling and catches fire, so the fat guy can't figure out what to do. The monster is surprised because weird magic sparks are popping around him. Xiaod snarls aggressively and fires all those magic projectiles straight at the beast, who yells from the surprise attack. The fat guy screams about how hot it's getting while Xiaod roars bravely and watches his opponent suffer. The spellcaster praised her favorite and he thanked her back. Meanwhile, the monster was regaining consciousness and got up off the floor, so the little beast immediately took notice. Even though this attack didn't do much damage to the monster, it still really annoyed him. The coins in the monster's belly started bouncing and ringing, which made Xiaoyu feel a bad omen. As a result, the fat guy started firing projectiles through the slot in his coin vault on his back. The girl froze on the spot, not knowing what to do next, while Xiaode prepared to protect his mistress. The monster launched into the air ready to unleash a devastating attack with its projectiles. For this move, he was planning to use all his cash to deliver a punch with nuclear bomb-level power and range. Xiaoyu immediately cast her protective spell while the magical fox had its flammable sparks ready. The beast was sure the girl was done for, and she definitely die from that powerful attack. The fat guy didn't wait around and launched all his coins straight at the seal's summoning circle and her favorite pet. Meanwhile, Xiaodi leaped right onto the protective barrier while his owner tried to warn him that it was way too dangerous. The fox ignored his owner's warnings and fired off his flashy projectiles right at the monster's coins. Then there was this insane explosion that made Xiaoyu barely able to hold his shield and stay standing. Xiaodi was completely on fire, and his owner's barrier started to crumble because the explosion really did feel like a nuclear blast. The big guy was already celebrating after destroying his enemies and turning them to ash, but then he heard Xiaoyu calling out from the smoke. The spell was completely intact thanks to her barrier, but Xiaodi was in bad shape and was unconscious in the girl's arms. She realized the fox had used all its power, so she pulled it back to the map. The monster watched in surprise as this happened, while Xiaoyu decided to use the Firebird's ability now. She put the fox card in her special pocket and pulled out the right pet from there. Another magic circle pops up in the battlefield for summoning a magical helper while the beast just keeps staring silently. The girl calls out for a fiery bird and a beam of light zips her into the game world. A cute little bird pops out of the smoke, looking like a chicken and totally not scary at all. The monster calls the beast a freak and doesn't even flinch, but Xiaoyu isn't waiting around and orders her favorite pet to attack. The fiery bird immediately responds to its owner's command and starts breathing fire everywhere. He went all out and charged at the gold-plated fat guy with a fiery attack. The bird pierced right through the monster without it even noticing its missing arm. His favorite fighter might not look intimidating, but his speed gave him the edge over his opponent. The fat guy wasn't about to give up so easily and built a wall of gold coins in front of himself. Xiaoyu ordered the firebird to keep going, show off its real power, and take out their opponent for good. The favorite immediately caught his mistress's voice and started breathing fire toward the golden wall. The coins, influenced by the bird, split in half, giving him a clear path to attack his target. The monster couldn't believe the bird was so powerful and had broken through the shield of 30 coins, so it got angry and wanted to use the remaining coins to crush his enemy. The assistant Yu wasn't scared at all and bravely flew forward to carry out his mistress's order. The girl encouraged the fiery bird, while the monster planned to destroy the annoying creature. Finally, the bird unleashed a fire stream so intense that even spotting the golden fat guy was nearly impossible. The coins and the monster just melted away from the extreme heat. The attack was so strong that even Yu had to cover up to avoid getting burned. The monster's health slowly dropped to critical levels, and its body was almost melted. In the end, all that was left of the fat guy was a few golden particles. The girl was super happy about the win and praised her strong boyfriend, and he shouted with joy. A treasure chest appeared in the air, marking the successful end of the mission. Now Yu could go back to the real world, where it was already deep into the night. Standing in front of her was stunned Wangan, who finally realized all his horrible crimes against the girls. Out of nowhere, the fat guy slapped himself hard and started calling himself real trash, not a person. He said he didn't deserve to be vice president because he'd been snapping photos of more and more naked girls every day and using them, but Yu noticed this wasn't his only sin. The guy admitted he'd met too many women who loved money, so he'd completely lost his faith. Wangan grabbed the girl's hand and begged her to slap him across the face for all his sins, but just then someone else walked up and started watching them. The man who had been standing behind his woman asked what the fat guy was doing. Turns out it was Long's brother, who was actually the house owner and had been using Wangan for his dirty plans. Long got serious and asked the guy what the woman by his side was, but the guy couldn't figure out how to answer. Yu took charge and introduced herself as a delivery courier who had mixed up the address and brought the order to the wrong place. She realized this guy was probably still a jerk, judging by Wangan's behavior and Long's attitude. The fat guy wanted to know what kind of hot chick was with his buddy, and it turned out she was their next client. Wangan didn't wait around and immediately told the hot chick that Long was supposed to demand naked photos from her for the money. The guy grabbed the fat guy by the shirt, but the girl already figured it out and ran away before things got ugly. Long's brother hit the guy hard for messing up the thief's plan on that hot stuff. The guy took down Wangan and kept beating him, but Yu decided to step in and stop the beating since Long could have killed the guy. She realized he wasn't listening, so she lifted the box over her head to attack Long's brother. She charged in without thinking and hit the guy straight in the head with all her strength. Long's brother passes out right next to shocked Wangan, while Yu tries to catch her breath. Yu tells the guy to stop staring at her and grab his friend fast, but he still doesn't get why it's all happening. She explains that Wangan can now be a good guy and take down the trash who needs to be arrested for posting naked girl photos, and that's when the guy finally gets it. Their plan gets interrupted by the sound of a knife being unsheathed, signaling that Long's brother has woken up and is standing on his feet. The guy plans to kill them both tonight, especially Wangan, since he's a clean-cut traitor and also involved in this scheme. The fat guy was desperately trying to tell his buddy that they were actually trying to save him from Yu. The guy still thought he was doing nothing wrong because he was just giving women who relied on money the service they needed for a fee. Yu pointed out that not all women did it just for profit, but more likely because they were in tough situations. She said that a reckless bunch like Long deserved jail, and Wangan happily agreed with the girl. Those words really got the guy's goat, so he lunged at Yu with a knife. The big guy couldn't stay out of it, so he charged at his buddy to save the girl. Long's brother lost his cool and slashed the air with a knife, cutting Wangan pretty bad. Yu started worrying about the big guy and asked if he was okay, but he just said he got a pretty bad cut on his face. Long wanted to go after the helpless girl and slice her pretty face, but another voice told Yu to step back. The main guy made it to the scene just in time to save the girl from the knife-wielding creep. Long was taken down and now lay on the floor, and Yu only just realized who saved her. The already heavily beaten man tried to say something, but Yibo hit him right in the nose before he could finish. Our hero kept throwing heavy punches because he planned to give the thief a good lesson. When Long's face was unrecognizable and his mouth had almost no teeth left, he begged for mercy and really admitted his mistakes, but Yibo was too angry because he didn't respect men who treated women disrespectfully. The guy landed the final blow that just knocked the man out. The main character told Wangan to bring a rope to tie up the thief and call the police. The fat guy ran into the house fast, while Yibo asked Yu if she got hurt. Yu's eyes lit up from caring for the hero, but she suddenly noticed something odd on his body. Zio-yu saw a deep cut on his hand and started asking how he got it. The main character said he accidentally cut himself with his target's knife, and Zio-yu was surprised he came to her help despite the serious injury. Zio-yu couldn't hold back and ran over to the guy to kiss him on the cheek for being so brave. She said it was a really sweet thing for our hero to do, but he could barely say thanks because he turned bright red from the unexpected move. The guy was so stunned he didn't even notice Wang and standing silently nearby watching the whole thing. The main character finally noticed him and got scared, so he asked him not to get too close if the fat guy was just bringing a rope. Zio-yu thought it was cute and laughed at Yibo, but the guys were already tying up Long. They finished their mission pretty quick, and within a few minutes were checking out their work. The guys noticed Yibo could tie people up like a pro, and the guy explained he just read a book about it, but never thought it'd actually come in handy. Zio-yu was about to take the main character to the hospital to patch up his wounds, but he asked her to wait because he had one more small thing to take care of. He walked up to Wang Gen, fists clenched, and said he knew about the big guy's positive changes, but that bad taste still lingered. Yibo kicked Wang Gen hard for all his past nasty stuff. He hit the fat guy to get revenge for Yuan's death, and made it clear the guy could never atone for all his sins with good deeds alone. Wang Gen immediately knew which girl was being talked about, but the hero thought even though the fat guy didn't kill her himself, he was still the cause of her death. Yibo told the guy to remember what happened today, and with regret and sincere remorse sent him to jail. Meanwhile, Zio-yu finally told the main hero to go to the hospital and hugged the guy's hand. The girl thought Yibo's speech was really cool, and he gave the right advice to Wang Gen. The main character blushed again from Zio-yu's attention, and she called him cute as usual. They got in the car and the guy noticed that time and space had flown by super fast, so the clock said it was already 9 p.m. Yibo started thinking about Lang Yan's condition, but Zio-yu assured him Lang Yan was fine, looking like a guy with a clear plan. Our hero confirmed there was some special aura coming from their comrade, while the girls started the car and drove off in the right direction. The events jumped back 20 minutes earlier to the city center, where Lang Yan's Lamborghini was speeding through at high speed. Everyone was staring at that super expensive car next to them like it was a status symbol. Meanwhile, the player was checking their map and saw they were real close to their goal. Lang Yan pulled up to the red car and saw the guy with his favorite girl, who got flustered and covered her face. Out of nowhere, some dude's body crashed onto their car and totally wrecked it. The woman died on the spot, her face showing pure terror and not even able to close her eyes. Lang Yan realized his target had already committed a murder, but the car owner was screaming in rage over the damage to his vehicle. The man didn't care about the dead guy at all, he was just upset his car was totaled. Meanwhile, Lang Yan kept trying to spot the house where the woman fell from, and finally saw the guy he was looking for there. The thief stood on the roof edge where he just committed the murder and stared down at the scene. He tried to catch his breath and apologized to the woman standing behind him who was crying. Turns out the guy just killed her mom, who he'd always treated brutally and once even pushed down the stairs. The man had high standards because of his mom's demands, but she just wanted a separate house for their family before the couple's wedding. He snapped because his mother-in-law hated him and forced him to buy a huge downtown house for 80,000 yuan per square meter. He thought the woman didn't care about his family situation or salary and didn't want to marry her daughter at all. His girlfriend believed her mom would never let her date him if she thought that way, but he still stuck to his guns. She decided to ask what else her mother wanted, and her husband started talking about how his beloved was having a conversation about the wedding ceremony at home while he was still at work. Her mother-in-law demanded a fully organized wedding in the city center and a gift worth 400,000 yuan. The man noted that just the venue already cost more than he could afford, and his mother-in-law also wanted such an expensive gift for his daughter. She pointed out that her daughter Jin had given her best years to her lover, so she deserved all the expenses. She also asked to buy a car for the bride so she could comfortably get to her job, and only then was her mother willing to let her daughter marry. Zio-yu promised to think about all these demands from his mother-in-law and discuss it with his parents. He went to the balcony and called his mom to talk about the wedding conditions with Jin. The husband asked her opinion and his mom told him to definitely refuse because they're trying to sell off his favorite. That really pissed her off, and now she considered Jing's parents as real scumbags since they didn't care about the kid's happiness at all. His mom told him to go home right away while the guy tried to calm her down so her emotions wouldn't affect his high blood pressure. Zio-yu still didn't want to leave his girlfriend, but his mom was willing to hand them over only if she had his body as a result. His family had already set aside the pension for buying the wedding house, so there was definitely no money left for Jin's car. His mom was so furious she switched to yelling at her son and called him a useless kid, which made the man break down and cry. Xiao apologized for his helplessness, but he just couldn't handle breaking up with his girlfriend, but his mom didn't hear him and yelled at him for whining. In the end, she ordered his husband to talk to Jin's parents, and if they didn't lower their standards, there would be no wedding. He wanted to talk to his mother-in-law right away, but the call got interrupted by a late-night call from his boss, Xiao. His boss never called him much, so the late-night call caught him off guard. The boss told Xiao the US had imposed sanctions on their company, which would cut the office budget. He figured the company would start laying off workers, and the boss confirmed it by showing him the list with both his name and Xiao's on it. It was a shock, but unfortunately, things like this can happen to middle-aged workers. He said goodbye to his boss, couldn't hold his emotions anymore, and dropped his phone because his life was completely shattered. His mother-in-law didn't say a word of support, just acted happy that her daughter hadn't married the now unemployed Xiao Dai. He didn't get what she meant, but she explained she'd never give Jin to him now. Xiao Dai couldn't take it and knelt before his mother-in-law. He begged not to take his wife and promised to find a job to make sure everything was set for the wedding. The woman made it clear she'd only give her daughter to the man 10 years older than Jin if he had a stable job and a steady position at a big company. Xiao realized then that his girlfriend's family just didn't want the marriage and got crushed because he'd put so much time and money into Jin over 4 years of dating. The man lost it and grabbed his mother-in-law's legs to throw her off the balcony. Right when that happened, Jin walked in from work and saw the messed up scene of her boyfriend trying to toss her mom off the balcony. The woman begged her daughter for help, but Xiao already flung her through him and pushed her over the railing. Jin screamed when she saw her mom die, and the guy wished his mother-in-law to burn in hell. The girl ran to the balcony and watched her mom fall onto the car below. She dropped to her knees shaking, not getting what just happened between her husband and mom. The husband took his shocked lover by the hand and led her to the roof to explain everything and give up his life. Xiao admitted he really loved his woman and still wanted to marry her, since he was planning to live alone until meeting her. He lost his job, killed Jin's mom, and had no right to love her, not to mention not wanting to live anymore. Xiao apologized for not being able to take care of his love and hoped to meet again in the next life, but someone suddenly yelled at the guy not to jump. Jin and Xiao turned around in surprise to see who else was on the roof with them. Lang Yang started explaining to the man that suicide is an egoistic act and that by killing himself, he'd condemn his loved ones to suffering. Xiao thought he had nothing to worry about because dying would only ease his parents' lives. Lang Yan grabbed his favorite because the guy said he didn't care anymore. But then the guy started worrying about Jin's safety. The guy realized he could take Jin's life just like Xiao was trying to take his own. He just thought about choking Jin, so the guy couldn't just stand there and rush to our hero. Ling Yan, who had set up the plan, pushed the woman aside and grabbed his target's hand for physical contact. The game console started loading data to move the fight into the game world. In seconds, the world around them changed, and the Monster Kingdom's emblem shone above them. The man's dark side was furious that Lang Yan wasn't letting him commit suicide and use his right to die. The guy explained that Xiao couldn't avoid punishment for his death by just killing himself. Then the man asked what he should do, and Lang Yan suggested going to the police and writing a sincere confession, but he wasn't going to do that. He thought it would all blow up in the news, making his parents targets for gossip, so Xiao couldn't risk that. Lang Yan called Xiao a fake man because he was too worried about his reputation and parents, but did stupid things that made him act like a total drama queen. The guy figured the hero couldn't understand his pain, so he just started talking nonsense. Meanwhile, Lang Yan realized the system sees suicide to avoid punishment as evil too, and noticed his opponent was about to transform. Later on, there was an explosion, and Xiao started transforming into a monster. A giant frog showed up in front of him, dragging a house on its back. Lang Yan realized he talked too much and didn't actually help his goal, so he decided to start fights without all the chatter next time. The guy started transforming, and the monster watched him closely. Eventually, he finished his transformation and immediately moved on to testing his new gear. Lang Yan called the monster over to quickly settle their argument. The frog didn't wait and shot a few water droplets at his opponent. He had good reflexes, so he dodged the droplets and avoided the attack. He noticed the water was evaporating super fast when it hit the ground, realized it was super hot, but didn't realize a droplet was right in front of him while he was analyzing all that. Lang Yan knew he couldn't dodge the projectile, so he tried out his new sword to see if it could slice through the water. He actually split the droplet into 2 parts and ended up in the middle, which surprised the opponent. Turns out the sword was sending such a strong energy wave that the frog could stop it with her water. The player tested out his new gear, which cost 100,000 yuan, and realized he could channel enough Kai to match a powerful energy sword if he swung hard enough. While the hero was thinking through all this, house, the frog started making some really weird noises that caught his attention right away. He noticed the windows of the house starting to open up and couldn't figure out what the frog was planning. A little while later, Lang Yan took a closer look and saw that cannons had popped out of the windows. That didn't faze our hero at all, so he just got ready for a fun fight. A bunch of lightning-fast bullet-like rounds start piling up on him, one after another blasting out from the weapon. Lang Yan decides to test his sword again and see if he can slice through all those bullets. In the end, he pulls it off and all the bullets are now harmless since they're neatly cut in half. Leftover rounds fall to either side of the guy and explode. Now Lang Yan's pretty sure this sword is the perfect weapon for fighting. He decided to push off and jump really high to get closer to the monster for a better shot at hitting it. The frog had already gathered water in its mouth, but Lang Yan noticed these attacks weren't working, so the monster was just gonna die. As a result, the hero just swung his powerful sword and cut the monster in half. So the guy quickly and easily took down the opponent and finished the mission. He immediately returned to real life where Xiao Du was already on his knees shaking from realizing what he'd done. The guy's tears rolled down his face and splashed onto the floor. Now he saw himself as a coward, just wanting to avoid punishment by using suicide as an escape, and begged his lover for forgiveness. Lang Yan calmly told the guy to stop apologizing and go to the police to surrender, so they could finally settle everything. Xiao Du agreed with the guy and reached into his pocket to grab his phone to call the police. Lang Yan was about to leave, but remembered he wanted to give the couple advice on the problem that had formed in their lives today. He realized that even with a real mom and a marriage to his wife, they probably wouldn't be happy. The guy thought the couple was missing out on something big, namely the ability to love each other. He told Jin Jin to finally grow up, stop bending to her parents, and start making her own decisions about her personal life and marriage. Regarding Du Jiu, the guy said he should cut off the conditions and not ask his family for money, trying to sit on two stools at once, because after marriage, the woman would just see him as a bought item. He wrapped it all up by saying building a marriage is a tough process that takes joint effort. Jin Jin and Du Jiu exchanged a silent glance, and Lang Yan finally decided to leave her behind and head out. He drove to the cafe where the team was supposed to meet up. The main character looked out the window and saw that Lang Yan had finally finished his mission and arrived for the meeting. Xiaoyu realized she was telling the truth and their friend had come back unscathed, while Yibo acted like he didn't care a bit. Lang Yan was already inside the establishment, shaking hands with his teammates. Guy was shocked because he didn't expect to be the last one to finish his mission and asked about the main character's injury. Yibo asked what Lang Yan wanted to say privately, and the guy replied that he wanted to reveal the real goal the Monster Kingdom was after. Main character thought everyone knew the Monster Kingdom's goal, but the guy felt the game had a hidden meaning beyond just making money in the real world. Lang Yan figured the so-called goal might lead players into an even worse mess, and his teammates started getting nervous hearing his suspicions. Xiaoyu asked what made the guy think that, and he noticed Bai Ling hadn't told them all the game's rules. Lang Yan told his friends he'd already found 3 hidden installations, shocking them all. The main character jumped up and lost it because Bai Ling had been lying to them from the start, but his comrade told him to sit down and calm down. He apologized for his out-of-control emotions and asked Lang Yan to keep going, and the latter explained about the first installation, which involved using rewards. The problem was that Bai Ling said the money could be used for real-life purchases, but in reality, the funds came to a virtual WeChat account, not the player's regular bank account. Our hero thought it was just for convenience, but Lang Yan didn't see it that way. To transfer money to a player's bank account, you need to register the sender's personal details and the bank, which reveals the accounts funding the rewards, while WeChat wallet transactions stay completely anonymous. Xiaoyu suspected it could be a hacker job, while you both thought the game was actually being run by a so-called god. Lang Yan believed both his friends' theories had merit, explaining that virtual wallet money was entirely under the game's control since the guy spent 10 million on gear. But the real kicker was that all 90 million came from his personal account. The 100 million in expenses shocked his friends, but Lang Yan kept going with his story about putting some money into his WeChat wallet. As a result, the system approved the weapon purchase, letting the guy buy the best warrior gear available. The guys thought it was cheating and unfair to other players who didn't have those resources, but if the system missed it, no big deal. Lang Yan noticed that if everything in the Monster Kingdom revolved around money and gold, weapon prices would be way higher. He figured rich guys also benefited from transferring 100 million, so our hero asked why the setting was there. Lang Yan wasn't sure about his theory, but he guessed it linked to the chapter called The Arrival of Heroes. It weirded him out that their team missions were too easy if players just bought the right gear. He figured the first chapter's goal was to pick players and kick them into the next stage as heroes, with the reward acting as a way to test them. Xiaoyu was happy she wasn't chasing money, but Yibo immediately mentioned Yuan Yuan Yuan, who had disappeared because she didn't know the rule. Lang Yan guessed that dying in the game was way worse than regular death. He asked his friends if they'd ever noticed the wine shelves behind Bai Ling in the waiting room. His friends said they hadn't seen anything special there, but Lang Yan thought the problem was definitely in those bottles since most had numbers and were filled with blue liquid. He noticed there were 103 containers, but 99, 101, and 103 were empty. The main character started figuring out what his teammate was hinting at, since his own number was 101 and Lang Yan's was 99. Lang Yan had a theory that players who failed their mission turned into blue liquid and spilled into the wine bottles. Xiaoyu and Yibo were shocked by these conclusions, and he added that he'd met other players before, like number 98 hostess Xiao Hong and number 100 programmer Chen Chong. Meanwhile, Lang Yan noticed a pattern in how the bottles filled based on their numbers. Same thing happened to Yuan, who was number 102, so the guy knew it wasn't just a coincidence anymore. He figured the wine bottles were their life reservoirs, which is why the friends got covered in ants. Now the hero got it, the Monster Kingdom was just a devil's survival game. Even though Bai Ling called the game's creator God, he was really a demon who just played with people's lives. Xiaoyu got worried after hearing that and nervously asked Yibo if they could survive. Main character didn't plan on just showing up, so he promised his friends they'd finish the game and beat the creator's ass. That kinda cheered up the girl, but Lang Yan told them not to go off saying such loud stuff until they actually made it to the end. He said the team's top priority right now was maximizing their chances of survival. So he asked Yibo and Xiaoyu to stock up on the best gear and go through special training. The friends were surprised when they heard Lang Yan talking about some unknown special training. He explained that during the last missions, he noticed one of the game's hidden setups. Lang Yan explained that physical training could temporarily boost combat power in the virtual world, but his teammates didn't get how that was possible. He mentioned he'd been doing strength training for his arms and legs lately and noticed his sword speed and power had gone up. Xiaoyu asked about herself since she was a summoner and didn't fight up close, but Lang Yan told her to focus on her magic and pets, while the main character decided to sign up for martial arts training. Lang Yan said Yibo didn't need to join any class since he already had a good teacher in his friend, Kai Li. Xiaoyu then asked if she could watch the main character's training session, and he happily agreed. Lang Yan told his friends not to talk about the game because the fewer people who know about it, the safer it'll be, since no one knew what would happen to the Monster Kingdom in the future. The guy shared everything he wanted to and hoped his friends would need it later, and Yibo genuinely thanked him for it. Suddenly, Xiaoyu asked Lang Yan to honestly answer her question because she couldn't figure out why he was so easygoing about sharing important info with other players. The girl pointed out they'd only met today, and until now they'd been almost strangers. Lang Yan stared at Xiaoyu silently with a cold look for a few seconds, but finally smiled at her nicely. He had nothing to hide, so he explained that the first reason was wanting to survive, and without a team of like-minded people, he had almost no chance at that. He figured he could make it through the first chapter on his own, but had no idea what was waiting for him in the next phase and assumed teamwork would be needed there. His teammates silently listened to his smart guesses, and in the end, the main character noticed that the guy was really clever. Second reason was that Yibo really liked Lang Yan. Xiaoyu and our hero instantly got the hint from the guy and thought their ally was actually a gay guy. Lang Yan told his friends to stop thinking shallowly and consider the concept more deeply, but those words only made them even more confused. The guy explained he meant there aren't many simple guys like our hero these days, so he just wanted to be Yibo's friend. Then the main character said Lang Yan was different from all the second-generation moneybags, and Xiaoyu could finally breathe again because she'd already thought she had a rival for Yibo's heart. So our hero stuck out his hand to shake hands and confirm they both wanted to be friends. Lang Yan shook his new friend's hand and told his friends they should all go through these complications together. Xiaoyu was annoyed because the guys acted like they didn't even notice her around. The girl placed her hand over theirs and asked if they'd forgotten about her. Xiaoyu pointed out that the team needed to face challenges together since she wanted to be their friend too. The main character was touched by her determination, and Lang Yan smiled back, offering to go through the game together. Meanwhile, Bai Ling was in the waiting room watching the players form a strong bond on the screen. She smiled at them, hoping her friends wouldn't let her down since she'd grown attached to this team. A surprise guest walked in and noticed Bai Ling was still going to be disappointed. The man in the emerald suit was upset his colleague was being so cold and rude to him. Bai Ling realized how much she hated Gulassi's huge ego. The clerk rushed them to wrap up the pointless chat and asked why her acquaintance had come, but he said he just wanted to say hi since they'd both been regional managers together. Gula Si said his team of heroes was already assembled, and Bai Ling coldly congratulated him while already having 3 players on her team. The guy realized his team was almost ready too, and couldn't wait for the second round to start. Bai Ling was waiting for the next chapter because that's when the real game would begin, but the conversation got interrupted by a new player entering the waiting room. Gula Si said goodbye and left, and she mentally noted how unbearable he was before inviting the new guy in. The old man opened the door and immediately asked where he was. Bai Ling smiled and introduced herself to player 104, Tomoya Maya Moya, with a friendly greeting. Meanwhile, Lang Yan finally made it back home, where his butler greeted him after his late-night adventures. The servant congratulated his master, and the guy apologized for coming back so late and disturbing his work. Lang Yan walked into the house, told his uncle Fu to rest, and noticed his brother was waiting to greet him. Lang Yan's dark-haired lover asked if the brother was his younger one, and he confirmed, noting that Lang Yan was special. The girl couldn't figure out what the guy was talking about, so he explained that her younger brother had naturally white blonde hair. That really surprised her since it seemed like the guy just dyed his hair, but her brother said Lang Yan inherited it from his grandfather and was different from other kids since childhood. Lang Yan got super mad because he wasn't in the mood for a conversation after such a tough and eventful day. The brother called the guy a bore and suggested his girlfriend drink with him, but Lang Yan decided to say something. The guy decided to remind everyone that their dad banned dating girls who were stars. He told his brother to act more reserved and not pick up his girlfriends in a showy way, even though dad was always away on business. The guy asked Lang Yan to talk to dad about stuff, but Lang Yan pretended not to see or know anything. He froze in place while the main character said goodbye to Deity Fu and headed off to rest. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu was driving through the empty city streets in her car. Yibo pointed out where his house was, thanked her for the help, and was about to leave when the girl wanted to say something else. Xiaoyu thanked the hero again for saving her life, but he realized that's exactly how real friends are supposed to act. They had to say goodbye because it was way too late, so the girl needed to head home. The hero climbed to his floor and walked into his empty apartment, flipping the light switch. Yibo greeted his mom, who he could only see in the family altar portrait. He planned to grab a bite to eat, then go back to his mom and tell her everything that happened today. Next up, the action moves to the Shangri-La Hotel, room 739. Xiaoyu's assistant was furious because it was already late and she wasn't in the room, so the staff was really stressed out, worried the girl might have been photographed by paparazzi. She was already super pissed off because she was the agent for this hyperactive girl, and she had no time to relax, but finally Xiaoyu came back. The girl walked in like nothing happened and asked her assistant Zhang if she'd still been sleeping in the bed. The agent snapped and started yelling at Xiaoyu, demanding a full story on where she'd gone that night and what she'd been doing. She pretended she was just going to the movies, not actually fighting monsters all night. She said she just needed a break from filming, and finally her assistant calmed down and told Xiaoyu to stop running out of the room. The agent couldn't help but worry about her charge since the entertainment industry's full of dangers lately and you never know what's around the corner. Chang said she'd recently gotten a message about Jasmine from DB Company, who was found hanged in her own home. Xiaoyu couldn't believe it, since she'd only been photographed with the leader of the Good Night Girls the day before at a new product launch. The assistant confirmed that Agent Jasmine had reached out and told her about the tragedy. Xiaoyu cried over the news and asked why Jasmine did that, and Zhang explained that they found a letter of farewell from the girl, with everything written out. The assistant said Jasmine had bullied her for her personality and outfit, saying she wasn't worthy of leading the group. The girl ended up in deep depression and couldn't handle the life, and Xiaoyu was so upset by the story she just started bawling. The assistant hugged her charge to calm her down, warned that the entertainment industry was always brutal, and promised to protect Xiaoyu from bullying. Zhang was planning to take over the girl's social media in the future so she could keep doing her job without worrying about threats and insults. Xiaoyu couldn't stop crying but finally understood her agent. The story jumps to the next day with a dirty apartment where a fat guy was sitting in his underwear. Pervert laughed at Jasmine's suicide news. The guy went to sit at the computer to post the news in the group and check how the members reacted. Turns out that creepy fat guy was behind the cyberbullying group targeting Jasmine, so he was thrilled when she got in trouble. The other members saw the link between their work and Jasmine's death too, but they blamed her and her unstable mental state instead. The big guy thought the world had too many helpless people and stuff, so he needed a group of tough guys fighting for justice. He made a deal with his buddies to play the glory of the king a bit, then grabbed his phone and jumped into the game. Meanwhile, the story shifts to Jiancheng University, where the school day has already started. Meanwhile, the main character's friends were in the dorm room doing their own stuff. The fat guy was picking a spot to hang up a poster of his favorite idol, Xiaoyu. He couldn't believe the idol could be so energetic and innocent, and saw her as his goddess. Just then, the main character burst into the room looking for Kai Li and accidentally slammed the fat guy with the door. Hyejai noticed that Yibo always comes back to the dorm room so energetically. Our guy asked Kai Li to be his martial arts teacher, but the guy didn't get why he suddenly wanted to learn it out of the blue. Yibo lied and said he'd always loved martial arts, then after meeting his friend, he really wanted to get into it, so Kai Li finally agreed to the deal. The buddy shoved the main character's shoulder and told him training starts tomorrow. Yibo noticed Kyoji watching the Glory of the King stream. The buddy explained that the stream had KPP and DBC teams battling for a spot in the annual finals. Main character checks the battle predictions and Kyoji admits he'll beat DBC because they were the first to take in the gamer Li Jing. Ugly fat guy watches the tournament where team strength and player numbers are almost equal, making things pretty tense. He's also playing right now and just won, so he thinks the game's way too easy for him. Meanwhile, the stream alerts that the DBC team's gamer got trapped and now everyone needs to save her. The fat guy hates this turn of events because he thinks the girl's messing up all the DBC participants. The team was crushed by their loss because they had fewer players, and the girl didn't want to say a word since she'd been the one to fall into the trap. The fat guy was super mad because he'd been rooting for the losing DBC team, and he was on his own turf. He blamed the whole mess on the dumb woman they decided to bring into their team. The fat guy was willing to do anything to get the gamer girl kicked out of the team and stop her from ruining DBC's future. First up, he planned to find all of Li Jing's social media to rally his group and mess with her personality. Main character and his friends were bummed out about DBC's loss since they were rooting for them. Kyoji and Yibo thought Li Jing was a bit spaced out, but still better than some other gamers. Main character said he liked the stream and wanted to try the Glory of the King, so he asked De Pen to join the squad later. The big guy didn't want to hang with the guys because he was busy with his poster, so Yibo decided to check out what was keeping his friend occupied. Main character found out the photo had his friend Xiaoyu, but De Pen didn't like how the guy treated his goddess. The big guy thought his buddy didn't even know the girl, so he couldn't talk about her that casually. Our hero realized he actually knew the cute Xiaoyu and had even hung out with her last night, becoming good friends, which totally blew his friend's mind. That really ticked off the big guy, so he started yelling at the main character. But Yibo didn't get why his buddy was so aggressive. Yibo didn't get his buddy's vibe because he thought Xiaoyu was just a regular girl he could chat with freely. Then De Pen lost it and told our hero to just look up Xiaoyu's name online to figure out who she was. Yibo lost his face when he realized the truth about his new acquaintance. The action moves to the DBC Cyber Sports team office where her coach was calming down the gamer who caused the loss. Li Jing thought she didn't meet expectations and asked to be fired if she lost the next tournament. The coach was sure he picked the right player because she was more responsible than the other gamers. He asked Li Jing not to blame herself and promised some time off, but their conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. Turns out the guys were teammates upset about being openly criticized on DBC's Weibo account. The leader told them to chill since haters would cool off fast, but the gamers noticed the hate was now reaching even their parents. Li Jing apologized for her mistake, but her teammates tried to calm her down, saying victory or defeat isn't just about one person. The girl checked her social media and saw comments saying women don't belong in cyber sports, so she should be kicked out of the team. The guys tried to support Li Jing since she really helped the team, but the girl snapped and started crying from all the insults. He pretended everything was fine and left the coach's office. The team leader asked if the gamer would go home, and she said she'd be back in 2 days before saying goodbye to the team. Meanwhile, the city was hit by another thunderstorm with lightning. Li Jing came home and jumped into a hot bath to try and relax after the intense stress. The girl couldn't stop crying and thinking about the annoying situation from the tournament. A dead guy showing up at her apartment door, looking just like player 104 with a black box in his hand and ringing the bell. She tried to ignore the unwanted guest, but he was way too persistent. Finally, she couldn't take the ringing anymore and jumped up from the tub to finally open the door. Li Jing came out of the tub wrapped in a towel and couldn't figure out who was up at that hour. She opened the door and asked the stranger what he wanted, but in the end, there was no one there. Li Jing looked down and saw a few drops of water in a black box on the floor. The girl couldn't figure out what the package was since she hadn't ordered anything, but she decided to check it out later. Meanwhile, Bai Ling was wiping down the new bottle numbered 104 and sighed with regret. She had big hopes for this Japanese guy, but he didn't deliver, and then she remembered her colleague's words about the ready-made team of heroes. She got angry and slammed the bottle on the table, but she figured this was just the start and Gulasi was still ahead in their showdown. Meanwhile, the main character's chasing after Kai Li and can't believe his friend's intentions. Turns out the athlete started the training by asking Yibo to run 20 kilometers from the university to the palace, but their chat got interrupted by a girl. Her showing up and talking to Kai Li really messed with the main character, since it was his crush Mei Chi. The girl apologized for butting in and wanted to ask the guy for a favor, while Yibo watched the whole thing and couldn't figure out what Mei Chi and his friend were whispering about. Actually, she just wanted to ask Kai Li for Lion Yan's contact info, who she'd been crushing on since the first glance. The girl explained that the whole school saw Kai Li chatting with his buddy when he rolled in on his fancy Lamborghini. Mei Kai emphasized that she was the president of the charity club which just launched a new aid program, so she wanted to reach out to Len Yan, who had connections with various organizations. Kai Li handed over his buddy's contacts without a problem and wished Mei Kai luck with the club's new project. When Mei Kai looked up, she spotted the main hero looking super weird and remembered exactly who he was searching for near the dorm. Meanwhile, Yibo panicked and didn't know how to act around his crush. He realized the girl was smiling at him nicely and figured he'd finally landed in heaven. Meanwhile, Kai Li had already passed on Lan Yan's number, which earned him a sincere thank you from the club president, and they finally said their goodbyes. The comrade decided to check out our hero, but noticed something was definitely off with him. Yibo kept staring lovingly at the pretty girl, but Kai Li didn't wait around and started their training right away. Meanwhile, the story shifts to the house of the disgusting fat guy named De Yu, who his mom was calling to the table. He was mad because his mom kept interrupting him while he read his favorite manga. He was eating popcorn and reading an awesome story, but the manga cut off mid-chapter and he flipped out. He totally lost it because they only released 10 pages at a time and charged money for it, so he left a furious comment. The action keeps rolling in the author's own apartment, where he's hard at work on new chapters of his manga. His buddy Dan yelled at him after seeing the reader's reviews. Denny told the guy what happened this time, explaining that some user named Lonely Prince kept leaving angry comments under their new section. The author just rolled his eyes and told his friend to forget about it, but the guy wasn't done letting it slide. Denny was sick of people slamming their hard work with negative comments, but the young guy kept telling his buddy to chill out and just accept it as part of the job. The author explained that readers and writers are total opposites, and creators like them could never fully satisfy fans with top-notch content. Denny agreed with his colleague's point and pointed out that there are millions of authors in the same boat, so criticism's always gonna be unfair. Even though their parents didn't back them, the school kids' comments in the comments section don't hold a candle to this, but the friends still refused to give up and kept doing what they loved. While that was happening, De Yu, who had already posted a fiery reply, was enjoying a tasty homemade lunch his mom made. They ate in silence at first, but then the woman asked how De Yu was doing with finding a job, and he promised to get a job after the new year. She pointed out he was already 30 and still acting like a kid, and she couldn't keep supporting De Yu forever. She told him he needed to find a job in his own place right away, which totally flipped the fatty out. Dirty jumped up and started screaming that he didn't need his mom's money at all. He was mad because he figured his job would make him work for a tiny paycheck, and the big guy thought the whole family wanted him dead. Mom pointed out that De Yu didn't have a rich family, so he had to figure out his own way to make it. He was willing to do anything to avoid work, even selling his family's apartment he'd planned to live in for life. Mom realized this argument wasn't getting anywhere, so she invited her son to eat lunch, but he didn't want to touch his food. Yu asked her to stay out of his business and went to bed before dinner, leaving his mom to cry alone. Meanwhile, the main character and his partner Kai Li kept running the 20-kilometer distance for their warm-up. Yibo was moving with all his remaining strength and asked his friend how much longer until his palace. Kai Li answered energetically that there was only a little left, but our hero couldn't figure out where the guy was getting all that energy from. He said there were only the steps up the mountain left and they'd be at the right place by then. When Yibo saw what his final test was, he broke down in tears from feeling like there was no way out. Kai Li waited a long time for the main character to crawl up this huge hill under the blazing sun. He tried to encourage his student, but the kid was already pushing through with all he had and said he couldn't feel his legs anymore. Kai Li realized it was just because the guy hadn't trained enough for this, while the main character was desperately trying to catch his breath. Then Yibo looked up and saw the Tao temple in front of him, and his teammate told him the training would be right there. While the friends talked about Kai Li's childhood and the Taoist monks, someone unexpected attacked the athlete. The guy was dressed in traditional clothes and had a masked face. Kai Li was a skilled fighter, so he reacted fast to the attack and countered the attacker. Then he saw the silver hair and realized it was his childhood friend and training partner. Len Yan didn't stop and attacked Kai Li again, but the guy dodged just in time. Kai Li spotted the attacker's weak spot and aimed straight for it. Len Yan didn't see that attack coming and grunted from the punch to his gut. Kai Li kept moving forward and wanted to land another hit on his opponent. The main character stood back and watched the epic fight between the two martial arts masters. In the end, the guy took his teammate's teammate's side and rooted for him. Len Yan caught his opponent off guard and used his weapon to strike. Yibo panicked for his teammate, thinking the whole thing was real. Only Kai Li's shirt got damaged, but he was fine, so the hero relaxed a bit. The guy refused to let his loss stand and challenged his opponent again. The rivals stood opposite each other, glaring at each other, ready for the next attack. Finally, they both charged in at the same time and started a new round of their fight. The third party got involved in the fight, deciding to stop the duel and hitting both fighters. Lan Yan and Kai Li were launched into the wall with all their strength, not even able to react to the hit. The guys were catching their breath while Yibo took interest in the face of the third attacker. It turned out to be a very mustachioed old man who was really upset that the students hadn't even greeted him yet and had already made a mess of the temple. He realized they should have asked the sensei for permission before starting the fight. The main character got shocked and figured out that an old guy was actually their martial arts teacher. Kai Li put his hands together in a greeting and bowed to the teacher. The young guy apologized for the rude behavior and said they thought the sensei wasn't there yet since they couldn't find him anywhere. The old guy decided to forget about the whole thing and asked why Len Yan put his mask back on. Chloe explained he just wanted to remember his childhood because he always wore the mask during fights with Kai Li. But the accessory also reminded Len Yan of the temple and his teacher, not just his past. Grandpa was really happy the student remembered him after so long, while the hero noticed in his thoughts that they'd set up a whole show for him. Kai Li decided to compliment Len Yan's flawless technique, since he almost killed his teammate if not for that. They promised each other it wouldn't happen again, but their conversation got cut short when the teacher asked about a stranger with the students. Len Yan took the initiative and said that Yibo was planning to become the old man's student, while Kai Li didn't get what was going on because he was the one supposed to teach our hero. The teacher thought about the offer because he hadn't taught anyone in 10 years and asked the student if they were comrades, with Len Yan saying they were best friends and recommending his acquaintance, noting the guy had real talent. The old man said he didn't care about their relationship but was definitely interested in the talent, so Len Yan suggested testing the main character. Meanwhile, the sleepy fat guy Dayu was still glued to his phone after waking up. He was bored with nothing to watch online, so he decided to check out some news. He saw a message saying the reserved polar forest had been sexually assaulted on her way home. The fat guy was thinking because he'd already seen this popular girl somewhere on Facebook. While mom was washing the floor in the living room, she heard some pretty strange sounds coming from her son's room. The annoying fatty laughed at the news, thinking the victim deserved such terrible treatment. He thought the reserved one was to blame because she'd been wearing revealing clothes during her streams. She couldn't figure out what to do with her helpless kid after hearing all those screams from his room. Meanwhile, Dayu sat down at the computer and started writing comments blaming the victim for not showing any sympathy. His group of followers immediately jumped on board with that messed up and disgusting viewpoint. The main character was already taken to the temple for his first test before starting his martial arts training. The guy didn't get what was going on because the old man made him strip and now just stared silently at his naked body. The teacher just ignored him and started grabbing our hero's chest without warning. Len Yan explained that the old man was just checking the guy's physical condition, but the teacher told Yibo to stay still and not talk. Then the old guy moved on to the hero's arms and legs, which made him nervous since no girl had ever touched his body before. The teacher grabbed Yibo's groin without warning next. That unexpected touch totally embarrassed our hero. The guy lost it and called the teacher a real pervert, but the teacher didn't care and said Yibo had decent physical shape. The friends tried to calm the main character down because it was just the first phase of the test. Out of nowhere, the teacher asked the guy again if he was sure about wanting to learn martial arts. Lan Yan didn't wait and answered for Yibo, but the old man wanted the kid's own answer, and eventually he confirmed his intentions. Then the teacher realized that with that level of physical conditioning, studying martial arts was impossible, but there was some exception for our hero. He explained that the guy's upper body bones were strong, but the lower ones weren't quite there. The main character got upset because he thought he wasn't built for combat, but the old man disagreed, saying the kid had something others didn't. The grandfather emphasized how amazed he was by Yibo's lower body bones and muscle, since his legs were basically perfect for fighting. Our hero got flustered when he heard so much praise about his uniqueness, while Len Yan finally decided to move on to real training. The young guy was super happy with the body assessment and was about to bow to his teacher, but the old man stopped him right there. The old man said he hadn't taken the guy as a student yet, so the guy asked what he needed to do to get accepted. He explained that Yibo still had to fulfill his request, so our hero was happy it was so easy and ready to do anything to learn martial arts. The grandfather asked if the guy had watched the 101 Wonders show, but our hero only heard about it from his friend. Turns out the old man liked the girl number 2 from there, and to everyone's surprise, she was actually Zio. The main character was shocked by his future martial arts teacher's weird taste in women. Meanwhile, the story shifts to the city's subway where the mom tried to keep an eye on her son, who kept trying to cross the warning line. The kid was playing video games on his console, but his attention got pulled by a pretty girl standing next to him. He immediately noticed something was off with the stranger because she was standing on the tracks and crying. Right then, a subway train zoomed past her at high speed. The mom told her son their train had arrived, but the reserved girl from the polar forest stepped forward even though the train hadn't come yet. Everyone noticed the girl had gone way past the warning line, so the metro guard tried to stop her, but it was way too dangerous. The streamer ignored everyone and just ran straight into the speeding train. She apologized to her parents, but the emotional pain was so intense she couldn't take it anymore. Her mom and son were shocked by the suicide, while the guard hoped the injured girl could still be saved. The guy tried calling an ambulance, and on the floor next to her there were a few drops of blood and a phone that had been unlocked. The phone screen showed those same disgusting comments that pushed the reserved girl to the edge of a desperate suicide. Meanwhile, the smug Li Jing was chilling at home, training by playing on her phone. Suddenly, the game got interrupted when the console she found in a box from an unknown sender vibrated and signaled something. Li Jing hoped the new game would give her something fresh and entered the game world, though she figured it was a bad time to do this. Li Jing walked into the waiting room, where the cheerful Bai Ling greeted her with a smile. The girl realized she wasn't the only player around, and Bai Ling explained that players 109 and 117 were already in the game and picking out their own weapons. She asked right away if she had a new mission, but the overseer told her to wait until the other players came back. Li Jing said she was in a rush because she had training after the mission, but Bai Ling pointed out that in a life-or-death game you don't need to rush. Meanwhile, the other players had already picked their new gear and were stepping out of the teleporters. Two guys walked out and reported that they were ready to get their missions. Bai Ling heard the players, so she snapped her fingers to show their targets on the screen. The first guy got his target, a 31-year-old salesman named Zio Dali who was at level V and could bring the guy 3.5 million. The blonde guy got a plain hospital named Dan Bin, also at level V with a reward of 3.8 million. The guys took their missions, and the overseer wished them luck with their assignments. One of them recognized Li Jing and said that's who the famous cybersports girl was. Kid, super psyched to meet the star here, introduced himself as Korean Han Ji-won and told her he's a fan, shaking her hand to show his excitement. Another guy was watching the whole thing but couldn't take it anymore and told his buddy he was gonna go do the mission. Only then did Han Ji-won remember about the mission, but he still told Li Jing to add his WeChat before leaving. In the end, the girl decided to do the favor for the annoying guy. Then Bai Ling asked Li Jing if she wanted to pick a weapon before getting the mission, and she agreed. The overseer explained that the teleport to the weapon storage was behind the girl. The scene switches to Da Yu's room where he was looking at naked girl photos and decided to share them with his group. Da Yu's buddies started writing disgusting comments toward the girl and her feelings. Li Jing had already picked her weapon and returned to the waiting room. The overseer snapped their fingers and the gamer's target appeared on the screen. Turns out Da Yu was her target and could bring her a reward of 4 million. Meanwhile, the disgusting fatty was already looking for a new victim to bully and wanted to push her to another suicide.